Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the Town of Smithfield Planning Commission meeting for October 12th, 2023. Would you all, I'm sorry?
14th.
Today is the 12th. It's the 12th, yes. Yes. Would you all please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the first item on our agenda tonight is Community Development and Planning Director's Report. Director Tammy Clary, please.
Yes, thank you, sir. Staff did include an informational item at the end of the agenda packet. This includes an abbreviated package from the Sweetgrass Project, which is located in Isle of Wight County. If you do have any comments or concerns, we would appreciate if you would provide them to me, and I can pass them on to Amy Raines, the Director of Community Development and Planning for Isle of Wight County. Also, additionally, staff have received a second PMUD application. This is for a rezoning for the parcel next to Tractor Supply, TPIN 3201005. It is currently under staff review and comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director. The second item on our agenda tonight is upcoming meetings and activities. Tuesday, October 17th, the Board of Historic and Architectural Review meeting. October 17th also is the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. That meeting was canceled. My apologies. Monday, October 23rd, Town Council Committee meetings, 3 p.m. here at the Center. Wednesday, November 8th, Town Council meeting here, 6:30 p.m. And Thursday, November 4th, 6:30 p.m. here also is the Planning Commission meeting.
I apologize, there was a typo. It has been fixed on the website. It's Tuesday, November 14th for the Planning Commission meeting. So it's not going to be next Thursday. It is back on Tuesday for November.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 3 on our agenda tonight, public comments. We have one sign up. The public is invited to speak to the Planning Commission on any matters except scheduled public hearings, which we have 2 later tonight. Please use the sign-up sheet. We have 1 person signed up. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person, and a required response from the town will be provided in writing following the meeting. Miss Mary Ellen Biebermeyer. Yes. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Name is, Mary Ellen Biebermeyer, 355 Grace Street. We meet again, as they say. So previously, I don't have a lot of prepared notes here tonight, but I just have a few random things that I want to bring up that I know you all are going to talk about tonight anyway, but and probably down in the future. One thing is, and I did speak at the Isle of Wight Planning Commission meeting regarding the Sweetwater development, which I know technically doesn't have anything to do with you all. It's outside of your bounds. However, it's kitty corner from Smithfield. So just as the Grange project, we were concerned about traffic. Ben's Church Boulevard has huge traffic problems. So the Sweetwater project is right now scheduled 600 some homes and some commercial areas. So I want to make clear right off the bat, I am not against the commercial aspect of this. I think it's great to have office space, commercial things that actually bring jobs to the county and to Smithfield. And this is what I think in general we should be focusing on, are jobs that people who live in Smithfield can work in Smithfield. My experience, a lot of people that live in Smithfield, they're traveling down Ben's Church, 17 to go to work. Across the James River Bridge, they're going other places. They're not working in Smithfield. So I think as a community, as a planning commission, town council, board of supervisors, we all need to be working together to bring jobs to Smithfield. Not houses. Houses have a lot of cost to them, the fire, the police, the et cetera, traffic, all that. So as we talk about Sweetwater, which like I said, I understand that's not in your jurisdiction, but diagonal right next to is this new thing that the town is working on. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Promontory?
Promontory.
Thank you. There again, I'm not against a commercial area, places that bring jobs, professional jobs, office jobs, what have you. Have a hospital coming. We'll need, we have people coming for that. We need jobs in Smithfield. We don't need 600 homes in Sweetwater, 250 plus behind Tractor Supply there. For that intersection, that stretch of road, it's too much. Too much. And we need to start thinking about that now. We're not addressing our infrastructure needs here because we only have two ways in and out of Smithfield. We have Ben's Church Boulevard and we have Battery Park in all reality. So now that we already are going to have 800 some homes at Mallory Scott, we all know that Battery Park is going to become really, really busy traffic-wise. Now we need to start thinking about Ben's Church. So I'm just asking you to think about these things as we move forward, that it's not just what affects Smithfield. And I don't know when it is, but I know there's an upcoming meeting between the Town Council and the Board of Supervisors. I hope the Planning Commissions, Smithfield and Isle of Wight, can all meet together. This has to be a concerted effort because Smithfield can do one thing, that affects the county. The county can do one thing, that affects Smithfield. So everybody needs to be coordinating this together. I guess that's kind of my piece on that. The last thing, and I know...
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. This will be another issue that you're going to be talking about later, is the former 7-Eleven on Church Street, that there's been articles in the Smithfield Times that possibly it'll be a vape store. I know in past you've had, Town Bank was even denied the blinking signs, stuff like that. I would hope that would be denied. I don't want to be so Puritan and say, oh, we shouldn't have vape stores. But I kind of look at vape stores as the commercial loan or the payday lending businesses of today. So I know there are ways, I know the Planning Commission is working on this, the Town Council is working on this, but I want you to know that I don't really think it's an appropriate type of business for that area. So that's all I have for this evening. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Biebermeyer. Even though you didn't sign up, anyone who wishes to speak on anything, you may do so now. Seeing none. Public comments. Close. Item number 4, Planning Commission comments.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
a couple things I've been thinking about lately that I would like Planning Commission to consider, and I'm going to go on the record as is we've seen a lot of development coming to Smithfield. And talking to developers, Hampton Roads is pretty well built out, which means they're coming this direction. And it's quite obvious that's happening. You can look at the Carrollton area and see what's happening, and you can see the amount of developments that have come across those planning commissions in the future. And our residents have been pretty vocal about what they want to see, and I think they have some very solid points. The point that I want to make tonight is that, especially as we see this new development coming to us behind Tractor Supply, which I know little about. Ms. Biebermeyer said maybe 250 homes. I've heard higher numbers. I don't know, and it doesn't really matter at this point. We have control of what comes into our community, and it is my personal opinion. I'm okay with what we did at Mallory Scott. I'm okay with that product. I did not vote on the Grange. I will not vote on the Grange, and I will let you guys handle that however you see fit. But both of those products had some multifamily housing involved in those. Moving forward, I am not going to be in favor of any additional multifamily housing, townhomes, apartments within the town limits of Smithfield. We're seeing a lot of that at Ben's Grant. We're seeing a lot of that in the area. And if we want to control density, not allowing houses to be touching and putting single-family homes in is a much better route. So I wanted to share with my planning commission members, my fellow members, that if an application comes before me where I'm voting on it and there's multifamily housing, townhomes and whatnot in the town limits of Smithfield, it's going to be really hard to get anything other than a no vote out of me. And just remember that we have control of what happens. We're a very popular destination right now, a very popular area to develop. And so we have the upper hand in negotiating. We're negotiating from a position of strength. So as these communities come, if we want to accept them, we can put any stipulation on them that they want, because there's not many other places they want to be. The Smithfield Times recently reported that we're the 7th fastest growing county. We can negotiate from a position of strength on that. And I think that we need to take full advantage of that to make sure that the town stays as nice. It's going to grow. We're going to see additional development. I'm okay with that. Our goal is not to stifle development, but to bring it appropriately with the right product. And I'll go back to the Grange the first time when it was Pierceville. I wasn't particularly opposed to, I think it had 150 homes in there. But what I was opposed to and why I voted no on that was because of the product they were bringing. The developer in there had 7 home styles, and he was going to mirror them so that the door would be on the left instead of it would be on the right. So they had 14 home styles in there. I did not think that was appropriate for our community, and I stand to say that it's still not appropriate. A lot of people will argue that we need affordable housing, and I don't disagree with that. But that doesn't mean that everything in Smithfield has to be the cheapest product you can put on there. We're still a nice community, and I would like to keep us that way. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I encourage you guys that as we look at these products, that we really put a limit on these high-density developments where you're taking multifamily housing and townhomes and attached dwellings and putting them in there and doing that way. I'm not even in favor of duplexes, to be honest with you. I never have been. So, yeah, that's all I had. I just wanted to share that with you all.
Thank you, Mr. Peck.
To
Mr.
follow,
Gibbs?
to follow up on that, when we get developments, we get concepts. We get concept houses, concept hotels, concept buildings. How do we get that in concrete to understand what product we're really getting when we sign off on these developments? Because most of these things are, this is the style of what I want to do, but they're not specifics because they're not far along into the process enough to say, I'm not investing that money, but yet once it's approved, it's out of our hands. We don't have anything to do with it.
We can have those proffered. We can proffer that they will be in accordance to these design standards. That's one of the things I liked about the PMUD is that when the developer brings you a PMUD, he proffers that it's generally going to look like as we present it. And we can make these developers proffer that we will only build homes that are brick, or we will only build homes with these particular approved sidings, or we will conform to the historic district guidelines, even if it's outside the historic district. That's a very tough set of guidelines. So if they wanted to build these homes behind Tractor Supply, and they said, we know we're not in the historic district, but we'll build these homes to the historic district guidelines, and we're okay with that, that's an opportunity to make them proffer that up front.
When you do that, when that happens, the houses become unaffordable.
That's a slippery slope, you know. I think most people would argue that houses are unaffordable in our community now, particularly for young people moving back into our community.
Millennials, yes.
You know, I think you would do that. I don't know how to get around that. You know, I mean, the stuff at Ben's Grant, so they're building apartments out there now. There's some townhomes out there. And that's the affordable housing for young people. But that's not affordable.
Not at
You know?
500,000, 400,000.
For
yeah.
$400,000 for somebody recently graduated from college, unless they're got a lot better job than I did when I graduated college, that's pretty unaffordable, especially with a 7.75% interest
The
rate.
nest over there, I think, is going for like $2,200 for a two-bedroom apartment, you know, that's pretty steep.
Well, and on the flip side of that, this is a product, I'm getting way deeper than I needed to get tonight, but this is a problem that's precipitated by inflation. So, you know, we've raised our minimum wage higher and higher and higher every year. And that's not that the people that are paying the minimum wage are not absorbing that cost, they have to pass it along. So all the products being manufactured, lumber and brick and siding and all those, become more and more expensive. And then we had COVID and all that became more and more expensive. We have rapid inflation. And it's nothing we're gonna fix at planning commission level.
Totally agree.
Unfortunately, but you have this acceleration of costs to many factors, and you have accelerated wages, but they're not keeping up, and that's not something that we can fix. You know, I'm in the restaurant business, so when I see that, Burger King is paying $15 or $16 an hour for a kid to flip burgers, which is considered an entry-level job, it's hard to understand now that you can't get a Whopper meal for less than $10. I mean, it's so the kid that was making minimum wage at $3 20 years ago was complaining about the price of burgers when they were $4, is now making $15 and the burgers are $10. So it's a compound thing.
Totally agree, and I totally agree that we're negotiating from the position of power, because one thing they're not making any more of is land. So since they're not making any more land, then we negotiate from the position of power. And so I think we need to put things in place so that we can negotiate, like the PMUD, set the requirements a little bit higher. I mean, I want affordable housing, but I understand the cost that comes along with it. And when I say affordable, I mean for our firemen, our teachers, who are making $50,000 a year. So,
My daughter's a junior in college, and she's looking for jobs. And when I graduated from college, I went to work for Ferguson Enterprises, and I started making $35,000 a year, which I thought was pretty good. That $35,000 a year now is equivalent to a $72,000 job graduating from college. That's what the inflation has been. And now it's been 25 years. But gosh, I think a $72,000 a year job is a very respectable job. And I know our firemen and our teachers are not making that, but that was a $35,000 a year job when I graduated college. It's tough.
now imagine firemen and teachers are still making $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year. So, okay, I'm gonna get off my soapbox sometime.
Well, I'm gonna get back on my soapbox, because I still think we've got to come up with density numbers in our own mind when we're looking at these developments. We don't have a density calculation for a PMUD. So our previous Grange project was 27.5, 29.5 units per acre. We still have to think about a magic number, whether you put it in writing or not, or you have a number in your head as you're evaluating these projects. But we still got to think about overall density, whether it's 4 houses per acre, 2 houses per acre, 10 houses per acre. People either don't want single-family homes, so they're going to multifamily homes, or multifamily homes make it a lot more dense. And then therefore, I think we still got to limit the development by density. And we don't really have, in my mind, I've said it for months, we don't have good density calculations in our ordinances. So I still think we got to think about density and how you limit the developers before they ever get here.
But density can be controlled by what we approve, what we suggest, for changes in any application, correct?
Within reason, yes, we have some control over it, yes. We have ordinances that say, this is our maximum density, and we can make changes to that if we choose.
People come to me all the time saying, why so many special use permits? If you have so many, why do you need 6 special use permits in a development? Something's wrong. They're trying to get away with something. But I encourage people to understand that special use permits are the way we regulate. If there are no special use permits, we can't say no. That's the issue. And so the issue is how do we keep our density controlled so that we always have that say? Because if a development comes in as a single-family residence and they're suburban residential at 5 units per acre, whatever that is, or 4.5 units per acre, and if they meet that, we don't really have a whole lot of ground to say no to. Legally, I don't know, but it's an issue of they meet our guidelines. what can we say?
Right.
Our guidelines have to be stringent and such that there are lots of special use permits and lots of exceptions, because that's how we have our say. If they meet all of our guidelines, we end up with an O'Reilly's beside a advanced auto.
And that's what I hope when we get into the discussion this evening on vape shops and the forthcoming marijuana legalization shops that are a couple of years down the road. That's how we control them. We have to control them with special use permits. And that's what, we'll talk about that later. I don't want to bring that up now, but Dr. Pope, I mean, that's exactly right. You control stuff with special use permits. It doesn't ban them altogether, but there has to be an exception made to the rule. That's how you control it.
Are you suggesting that we continue to amend our ordinances?
Well, I think
We
it's-
just did it.
I
Should
think
we
it's
continue?
always a fluid document, no matter
Okay.
what's
Totally
going
agree.
on. But I still think we have to keep density in mind, and trying to be fair to the developer, we've got to limit the density before they get here. Not when they're sitting in front of us saying, we don't like this, we don't like that, we don't like this. We need to tell them up front, whether it's our ECO guidelines, whatever it may be, whatever document that's there, but I think we have to decide, do we want 1 house per acre, or do we want 10 houses per acre? That's how you control density in my mind. I know Mr. Rick and I have gone back and forth, but I still think in my mind, that's how we limit development.
But as I understand it, all the ordinances have a density number as they stand now. Are we talking about just specifically the PMUD?
Well, PMUD doesn't have a density calculation. However, like suburban residential, depending if it's conventional versus cluster, but you do have it there. But if they meet that, what ground do we have to tell them no? So therefore, we should, in my opinion, should be more restrictive.
When we look at the, is it promontory, whatever's going behind Tractor Supply, that's a rezoning application first, correct?
Correct.
Yes. We could choose not to rezone that at all. We could say, look, we're comfortable growing, but we've grown too fast. Your product's great, it's wonderful, it could be exactly what we're looking for, but we're not ready for it yet. Come see us in a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever we want. You don't have to approve a rezoning. That's another way to keep development at a pace, so that when you say, we want it to be whatever the zoning and they meet it, then we have no control over it. That, I mean, that's a solid point. You just don't rezone it at that point too. That's the other option. Because we do need to be careful. We are growing, and we are growing fast. And the concerns that I've listened to are not falling on deaf ears. There's some, it's really miserable to drive in Bennett's Creek right now, on that section of 17. And 5 years ago or so, it wasn't. But there's development that's been down Shoulders Hill. There's development on the other side. They put that great big place in there at 17 that, I forget what the name of it's called. But I mean, that's a very blown up area that happened really quickly. And we can control that by not rezoning. You know, we can control some of that by just saying, no, we're not ready for that yet. You know, we're growing, and we're growing at a proper pace in our minds. We don't have to take every development that comes along.
Attorney Reddick? Any comment about landowner rights? What, the landowner, what rights would he have if he brought an application before us?
They have a right to file an application, but you don't have to approve it.
Okay.
But you should, you shouldn't preconceive anything, though. That's, you can't just say, we're not gonna approve anything either. That's illegal. That's a moratorium. You can't do that. That's illegal. You have to be open-minded and listen to every project based on its merits.
So in theory, if they were to bring us this project behind Tractor Supply, and we're just saying, you know, you got a great product, but we're not ready for it yet, bring it back in a couple of years, would that be an illegal statement?
I'm not gonna say it right now. I'm not gonna give you that advice right now. That's not.
Fair, fine,
That's
okay,
not, I'm not gonna answer hypotheticals on things like that.
fair.
But to follow up on what Mrs. Biebermeyer mentioned, and what you mentioned, the county has delayed action on the application for Sweetgrass perhaps they're having the same feedback and understanding about what's going on in the county as well, if they're delaying action on the application.
Actually, the application was brought before the planning commission. We discussed it, not in detail, but during our last meeting. So,
But didn't the Board of Supervisors,
Use your mic, Mr. Gibbs.
oh, sorry about that. So, yeah, so it was mentioned at the county level, at the planning commission. So, we got a preview of the project.
but it seemed like there was something, could be wrong, there was something that the Board of Supervisors postponed at their last meeting in regards to that.
It's not been through the public hearing yet.
Sweetgrass has not been through the county public hearing process?
No.
It was just like an FYI for us, say, this is coming down. Hey, so,
Perhaps you were thinking that there was a previous application for that property that we saw about 2 years ago?
There was,
They sent you they sent you a concept plan a couple of years ago, and you commented on it.
Correct.
And you said you didn't like, as I recall, backyards facing Route 10 and a lot of other features.
Yeah, there's an RV park up front or something.
Yes.
Right.
And so you weighed in on what you thought were appropriate and what wasn't appropriate, basically.
My question is what happened with it at the county level?
It's just been churning through the process.
Okay.
They never have,
There's been no public hearing on that
No
project
public hearing.
whatsoever at the county
No.
level? Okay.
I believe the email that I received from Amy Ring indicated that it was a public hearing item at the last Planning Commission meeting for Isle of Wight County.
I thought Mr. Gibbs was there.
I was there. It wasn't, no, it was more like
There was no public
it
hearing.
was no public hearing. It was more like an FYI, this is coming down, this, so.
He would know if it was a public hearing, because he'd have been there a long time.
Yeah, I've been there until like 11 o'clock, so it was a quick meeting, so. You said Amy?
Correct, I have an email from Amy Ring stating that it was an upcoming public hearing item.
Upcoming.
Okay.
Upcoming, okay.
Okay,
And that we had provided comments back in 2019 when the application first appeared. However, it has gone through additional iterations of that application.
Well, I have no more comments, Mr. Chairman. I just want to share some thoughts that I've been pondering lately.
and I think it's going to be, a lot of delay concerning that. There's also this issue of VDOT, the county, and several developers trying to do something with Ben's grants, a church,
Turner Drive.
Drive, yeah.
Turner Drive and Route 10.
Turner Drive, and I think there were some elements that go up to Brewer's Neck. There's supposed to be a lot of alterations to the highway itself. There's some sort of plan looking forward as to how would that highway meet the future demands.
The immediate issue on Turner Drive is that there was, in order to make that work because of the way that intersection is configured, the only solution I think they came up with is a roundabout.
Yeah.
Which is to the rear of the site where the Wawa is supposed to go. And Mr. Grice explained it to us at a meeting not long ago about the county really hasn't committed $5 million of its own funding. They made an application for something in the nature of grant funding or something like that, or some sort of program where their funding would be forthcoming, and the public, the locality match is coming from the developer, not the county. That's how he explained it. But the county did not say, we're gonna put $5 million in the deal. The county said, we're gonna facilitate an application for funding with the local money to be matched by the developer. That's how he explained the Turner Drive situation.
Okay. Any further comments from the commission? No? Okay. Item number 4, Planning Commission comments. That agenda item is closed. Moving on to agenda item number 5, public hearing. This is a special use permit application for about shipping containers, and specifically this one, 293 and 295 Cary Street, Town of Smithfield, care of Jeff Smith is the applicant. Could we have the report, please?
Yes, thank you, sir. The applicant is seeking approval to modify the site plan and install various props and a total of 12 shipping containers, which will also be utilized as props and for storage. The first prop would be a pole barn type structure, which is approximately 50 feet by 30 feet, and it features a flat roof prop with a deck underneath. The second structure would be a future module classroom. This is approximately 50 feet by 30 feet. The third prop is a pitched roof prop, approximately 30 feet by 30 feet. The fourth prop would be an RIT Mayday prop, which is constructed from a 50 by 8 foot shipping container. The fifth prop, which is actually numbered 6 on the diagram, this would be a 2-story stacked VES prop constructed out of 2 stacked shipping containers. The sixth prop, which is number 7 on the illustration, is the main burn buildings, incorporating at most 6 shipping containers, which would also be stacked. There will also be 3 50-foot by 8-foot shipping containers that would be utilized for storage. This would be items 8 and 10 on the diagram. There will also be a vehicle rescue extraction area. The fencing will be installed to match what is currently located on the property and will also feature 2 gates for fire truck access. Additionally, the police department is proposing a mobile module shoot house, and this would be located on approximately a 3,000 square foot concrete pad. ECO is also required as one of the shipping containers at its proposed location number 4. This is partially within the ECO overlay. These shipping containers would come from the 1802A South Church Street location. It is unknown how long they have been present. However, approval of this special use permit would bring that property into compliance. Town staff do support this application for their site plan amendment and ECO approvals, as it would provide a safe training space on the edge of town limits, mostly screened from view, with the suggestion that structures and colors utilized are coherent. The positives of this application is it would bring 1802A South Church Street into compliance, as existing shipping containers are currently located on that property. Negatives is it is not a by right use and does require a special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant, I would take it, is here. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Would you like to speak on behalf of your application?
We just want to be in compliance from 1802
Yes,
South
sir.
Church Street.
Name and address for the record, please.
Right. Jeffrey Smith, 17192 Days Point Road. I'm Assistant Chief for the Smithfield Volunteer Fire Department. We're trying to create our training ground for our firefighters and our young generation to get them better prepared and get them in compliance with 1802. We want to move it all out to the public workshop to get it out of the eye of the public, so we can do our training all the time out there. If there's any questions I can answer, me or the fire chief can answer them for you tonight, be happy to.
So the shipping container on Church Street presently, the one that has been getting a couple of waivers the past few years, you're moving that one to the Cary Street location?
We're
That's
moving
what I
everything
understood?
out there.
You are moving that? Okay. Any other questions?
Just one, Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to assume and hopefully confirm that using this property for such is okay with the town?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. One other question. I noticed on one of the drawings, the maps, there was something about 2 monuments. Could you explain that, what those were?
2 monuments.
Yes.
They're survey monuments.
Survey monuments?
That's just, they're things in the ground that surveyors use to pull distances and coordinates from.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you.
More general question, maybe I'm wrong, don't quite understand it all. Is the fire department run by the county? Does the county and the town have an agreement for all of this? Is that what you're saying? this a town and a town-county agreement that they have to say, yeah, they can move all this stuff out there? Does it matter?
The Smithfield Volunteer Fire Department is a separate organization, but they work in conjunction with the county. The county owns your facilities, do they not? But you are a separate organization, not controlled by the county.
We're funded by the county.
They're funded by the county, but not controlled by the county.
So this doesn't create any conflicts between the town and the county and having this equipment back and forth and all that stuff?
If there's a conflict, I think it's been resolved over the years. It's been something that's been evolving, and I think they've worked it all out, and it works pretty well now. Does it not, Mr. Edwards?
Basically, we're funded by the county, and this is just the training effort that we have put together as a fire department to train our members, and it has brought in multiple highly trained members that we've gotten, and the town and the county have gotten benefit from for having these training props, because they can train here in places that they can't train somewhere else. So it's basically, this training prop has been funded by the Smithfield Volunteer Fire Department. We put on training classes, we charge people to come to these training classes, so they kind of fund themselves. So that's how we've been able to acquire the props that we have now, is through the different classes and stuff that we've got. We do a vehicle extrication class, it'll be in December, that we'll have 30 or 40 students come for that one. We do a truck operations class in March. We'll have 100, 150 students come from that come from, might as well say, all over the United States. We put that out for registration. In the last 2 years, we completely sold out in less than 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. And please, name and address for the record, please.
Chris Edwards, 15064 Foursquare Road.
Thank
I'm
you.
the chief for Smithfield.
Thank you.
And parking at this site can accommodate all these vehicles that are gonna come in and things? Not necessarily fire equipment, but the participants?
It should, yes.
I was gonna ask the question, but I think your commentary there answered it, which was, when you set all this up, are you going to bring people from outside Smithfield and Isle of Wight to it? But I think
Yes.
what you did there
I mean,
answered that
we
question.
have instructors from FDNY. I mean, we've had some from Chicago. I mean, we have instructors from some of the best departments in the country coming here to teach. And y'all are welcome to come by our classes and look, because it is truly an impressive event. And we need more room to expand. We're using part of the VDOT lot that's beside our station now. We've basically outgrown where we're at, and that's kind of why we need this facility. Two things: it gets the shipping containers that we've been getting special use permits out of where we're at now and get them out of the treatment plant.
Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This being a public hearing, no one has signed up. If you wish to speak about this matter, in favor of or against, and now is the time. Yes.
I mean, kudos to the fire department. I've seen their training. It's pretty awesome. But probably not a good thing to do in the middle of town either. But I'll just put this bug in your ear. All the more reason we need a flyover from the bypass out to Mill Swamp Road, because you're going to have all these fire trucks going up and down Cary Street. That's a residential area. That's a busy area right there. I'm not saying I'm against it. Like I said, that's great. We got to think long term. So let's work on that flyover. Thank you.
Point well made. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? It's a public hearing. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. We have an application. Planning Commission?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second.
Just to clarify, this would be to approve the site plan amendment, entrance corridor overlay review, and then a favorable recommendation of the special use permit to town council.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Call for the vote.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Swecker?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
And Chairman Bryan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Recommendation to town council has been approved. Item number 6, public hearing. This is amendment and a revision of Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area district map of the zoning ordinance, care of Town of Smithfield applicant. Staff report, please, Director Clary.
Yes, thank you, sir. The existing Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area District Map, this is part of our Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area Ordinance adopted in 1990. This was amended and readopted by Town Council on October 3rd of 2000. The CBPA map needs to be updated and incorporated into the zoning ordinance. The current map does not show a boundary line adjustment, which incorporated approximately 5.3 acres of land. This includes the remaining portions of the parcel at the end of Glen Eagles in the Cypress Creek subdivision, and then also the annexation of approximately 184 acres of land in the eastern portion of the town between Battery Park Road and Jones Creek. Again, the CPPA map does include our 3 intensely developed areas, our IDAs. These were previously identified by Planning Commission. These areas include Clance Park, the Smithfield Station, surrounding parking areas, and then portions of Wharf Hill and the Smithfield Foods Executive Buildings, including the Pagan River Townhomes on Commerce Street and the Smithfield Foods Executive Buildings that front on the Pagan River. Town staff have provided a revised CBPA map, which does display the additional parcels, including in that boundary line adjustment and annexation from the eastern portion of town. Town staff do recommend a favorable recommendation to Town Council for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant is the town. Anyone here speaking on behalf of this application from the town?
She just did.
Okay. Being a public hearing, anyone in the public wish to speak for or against this application? Yes, ma'am. Yes, please, state your name and address for the record.
Carolyn Torrey, 32 Main Street. I'm a little confused. I don't think I follow what is being revised and amended by this.
There are several areas that was not accounted for in the previous map.
All of those areas, what are the revisions and amendments, though?
They were from boundary line adjustments as the town has grown. They were brought into the map. So when we annexed a portion of Battery Park Road and Nike Park, that was not on the previous map, but is on this map.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with environmental protections and coastal protections and all that?
No, this is including the Chesapeake Bay area within the town limits. The previous map was from 2000, which predated these annexations, so they were not included in the map. All that we're doing is we're incorporating the entire town boundary limit in this updated map.
Okay. My understanding is the townhomes down on Commerce, they're already part of the town. Excuse my confusion, but it's just not making sense to me how this is something new. I don't get this amendment part.
Well, there were a couple of things that's being clarified with this new map. And one is what's called an IDA. You look at the map and you can tell more or less the characteristic of whatever is within that area. And that is part of what's being updated.
Okay. So this is not affecting any environmental coastal protections? This isn't doing anything?
It's just an inclusion, updated inclusion of these environments.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you.
Yes,
It identifies the areas that already exist.
yes.
But now includes areas that previously were outside the town limits. Nothing is changing, if that makes you feel better.
Anyone else wish to speak? Okay. And just to clarify, it was 3 terms that was covered in this amended map. One was the RPA, what's it called, a resource protection area. Just updating those, the detail location of these areas within the map. That wasn't covered previously. One that I think is good to update is what's called the IDA, and that's that intensely developed areas. These are areas that was already developed prior to this Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act.
No, that's not right, Mr. Prime. The IDAs were identified by the Planning Commission many years ago, and the law permits those areas to be developed to a higher degree of development than would otherwise be permitted under the provisions of the RPAs in the Chesapeake Bay area. That's why the Smithfield Station is where it is. It's very water dependent, and so therefore it's designated as an IDA. The corporate office building and the townhouses which were there, they predated everything. That area is an IDA because it was designated by the Planning Commission and approved by the Town Council, and then Clomps Park as well. There is no new designation. These were all done many, many years ago. The map reflects what's already been done, so nothing's changing. It's not being changed. The only thing that's the only change to this map is that we are including areas that on this map that didn't show on the prior map because they were not part of the town boundaries. Annexation brought in different areas, and now the entire town, including all of the annexed areas, are shown on this map where they were not shown on the 2000 map.
Okay. So the IDA was already covered in the previous map.
There's no new change, no changes to the IDAs. There's no changes to the RPAs.
Okay.
There's no changes to anything. All we're doing is including the map. The town got bigger, and now the map shows the whole town.
Okay. Moving on. No further comment from the public? Public? Yes, sir.
Bob Hines, 216 Washington. Okay, so these changes were made in, 2000. Now we're updating the map. Maybe I'm missing something, but why 23 years to get this taken care of? Seems like it should have been done a long time ago.
I apologize, I've only been in my position for a couple of years. I'm trying to catch us back up. Again, when it was annexed, it was probably just an oversight. Again, we've noticed it, we've identified it. We want to make sure that we bring this map into compliance and incorporate all of town boundaries.
Makes perfectly good sense, just why it took so long. But you've only been here 2 years, you're obviously, thank you.
Well, the annexation was only fairly recent.
Yes.
I mean, the Mallory Scott farm that they had that wasn't formalized. I mean, we tried a big annexation. That's when they threw up all the arms 10 or 11 years ago. But Mr. Napolitano asked that spec section of the county be incorporated into the town. And so the county agreed without reservation to let that land be annexed to the town. And then there was a section in Cypress Creek on the back section that backs up to the radio station that was technically county property. Those houses weren't put in until the last 3 or 4 years. And so they never did anything with that property until they actually developed it, because the developer never offered those parcels for sale until the new developer took over. But all of that was into the county, and it had to be incorporated into the town. It's just incorporating that land. And that was all just recently done, I would say within the last 8 to 10 years, from my knowledge of following it as a citizen. So it's not really 23 years, it's really the last 8 years. It's just that the map hadn't been updated since 2020, but the land hasn't recently come into the town until the X number of years, which is less than a decade.
My understanding of this, Wharf Hill and Commerce Street, those are some of the earliest lots that are numbered on the original plat lines as, lot 1, 2, 3. I mean, I would think they would be
It is. That's not changing. Nothing about that changes.
I was gonna say, I'll try one more time. The thing that changed is Planning Commission some time ago identified them as IDAs. What's changed on the map is they've called them out and showed them on that map that they've been called out.
They were
But-
shown on the previous maps.
Right.
Look at the map below. The only thing that's changed is the shape of the map.
Shape of the map. Yep.
There's two maps on here, the old map and the new map.
That's a better way of putting it.
And the only thing that's changed is the shape, the only shape change is to the property that was recently annexed next door to Gatlin Point South on Battery Park Road. So only change on this map.
Correct.
And a small piece of Cypress Creek.
Okay. The public hearing portion of this application is closed. Planning Commission comments?
I have
Have
one
we
now.
already done that?
I do have one now. We are showing that Clontz Park as an IDA, okay? An IDA is an intensely developed area that allows you to build right up to the water's edge. And it's a great tool in that place where it makes sense. I believe the IDA was there previously because Smithfield Foods had a factory that was built all the way to the edge of the road there where the boat ramp is now, okay? Well, we've turned it into a park and made it into a boat ramp. And I question if it is appropriate to remove that from this IDA status and put it back into, which I believe would be the RPA status. What that would do if that change was made would not allow that area to be intensely developed anymore. It would give a greater environmental protection to that property. And when we look at this long-term, I don't foresee development going in place of our existing boat ramp. So, Ms. Clary, if you could kind of add to that if that makes sense or if it doesn't make sense.
Well, I'll speak to that. It's already been developed. It's been intensely developed as a marina and park. If it had RPA status,
We couldn't have put the boat ramp there?
You couldn't do it.
Okay.
So you can change it, but you better get rid of your boat ramp and your park. And your
Well, that's not what I'm trying to do.
Well, I mean,
I'm not trying to get rid of the boat ramp at all. I just don't want to say that we could go in there and build a factory or anything down on the river because we have plans to keep it as a park.
It belongs to the town of Smithfield, so
I
that's
understand.
not likely to happen, but,
I would like-
it was developed as a water-dependent facility and.
The boat ramp qualifies as water dependent in my opinion.
Absolutely, well,
Yeah.
if it doesn't, I don't know what does.
I like to argue to say, yeah, we might, when Smithfield gets built out 20 years from now, it might be a very intense, popular place, and you might want to put an ice house down there and a bait shop and all other kind of stuff, and if we regulate that, you're not going to be able to put a building down there for the.
I'm fine. It was a question, it's more than a suggestion, like, does it make sense? And it appears it doesn't. So, yeah. No further questions. No further comments.
None? No further comments? We have an application before us.
I make a motion that we approve as presented.
Second.
Okay.
This has got to be forwarded.
It does.
Favorable
Recommendation.
Recommendation. I'll make a recommendation that we approve as presented.
Second.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve this application as presented.
For recommendation to the town council.
For recommendation to Town Council. The amendment and revision of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area District Map of the zoning ordinance, care of Town of Smithfield. Call for the vote.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Mr. Swecker?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
And Chairman Bryan.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Item number 7. This is entrance corridor overlay application. This is 1005 South Church Street sign. Kenneth Wagoner Here's the applicant. Could we have the report? Please, Director.
Yes, thank you, sir. The applicant is seeking approval to erect an approximately 60-square-foot channel letter raceway sign for a new business at 1005 South Church Street, which was formerly the 7-Eleven. The sign will feature red, white, and blue colors and will be illuminated internally by white and red LEDs. Town staff do recommend that a special sign exception is required due to the internal red LED lights, as Article 10 E12 requires internal white lights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll start this out of the gate.
Okay.
I'm not excited about this business coming to our entrance corridor. I do not intend.
Is the
Oh,
applicant here?
sorry. I did not see the applicant.
Is the applicant here? No? Okay. Continue, sir.
I do not intend to vote for anything that would allow for a special use permit to make this easier on this project. We're going to have discussion. We cannot stop, as I understand it, a vape shop from opening in our entrance corridor at this time. We're going to have some discussion on that later on changing our ordinances, but I do not intend to vote in favor of a special use permit that would allow it to be easier for this vape shop.
But currently, well, how do we discuss that and the other thing, but they currently have the right to open a vape shop here.
They do.
We're just asked to look at the sign to say, do we agree with the sign? Is that
Correct.
correct? We can't do anything about this vape shop.
We cannot. It's my intention that they imply with the letter of the law on this if they're going to open a vape shop, without exception. That will be my vote. Was there any discussion, Ms. Clary, about what to do with the big 7-Eleven sign by the street that's currently wrapped in black plastic?
We did ask the applicant if they were proposing a detached sign. The sign company that we've been dealing with did not have an answer for us. Right now, they're not working on a detached sign for this project.
Do we have control over what happens to that sign? It clearly is. I mean, it looks temporary right now, which is fine. But like, if it were to, can we make them take it down? Can we make them turn it into a sign? Can we make them come into compliance with our ECO guidelines? What are our options on this site?
Due to its location, staff would more than likely need to see some sort of site plan to see if it is a non-conforming structure, just due to the age of the structures that we find located on South Church Street. If they did want to alter that sign and it was a non-conforming sign, then they would need a special sign exception for that detached sign as well.
But if they don't want to do anything with the sign, do we have any say-so over it?
Right now, from our interactions with the applicants, we believe that they're removing the detached sign, that they're only going to utilize this rooftop sign, this flat wall sign. Thank you.
I realize that doesn't have anything to do with this particular application in front of us, just curious.
And concerning past sign exceptions coming before this commission, we've been pretty stringent. Particularly one town bank. We didn't recommend that favorably. And personally, I emailed Director Clary yesterday. I drove around, of course, like I normally do before these meetings. I drove around with this sign application in mind, just to look at the other signs throughout the town. And I found them all to be pretty much the same level, illumination. None of them really stood out. The lighting was simple, within code. There's very few exceptions to the sign ordinance. Now, it has nothing to do with this application, but there was one vape shop, the one in Cypress Run, its sign looked like all the other business signs. It didn't stand out at all. It looked just like all the other business signs. I looked at the one in Smithfield Square, and it's blaring. I know the ordinance allows for 50% of the window to be covered in signs, but the lights are much brighter than any of the other signs. It was the brightest lights I saw in the town last night. And I've, Director Clary has informed me that they intend to look at it and see if it's within compliance. Now, in our ordinance, in regards to signs, there is an article that directly points out spillover of light. How much illumination do they provide beyond what's reasonable for their business?
Well, that's not an issue in this.
It's not.
In this
It's
application.
not. But I'm getting to this thing, this applicant here, and asking for these special exceptions. And I don't understand, well, I don't know why we would provide such an exception. The ordinance clearly states that it should be white light illuminating the sign. They're asking for something that no one else has, particularly for this type of business.
Just to clarify, the applicant has not applied for the special sign exception yet. We did identify this as requiring a special sign exception because they are proposing red LED lights.
Yes.
We are bringing this before the Planning Commission as an entrance corridor overlay review application at this point in time. Thank you.
I believe we need to hold this applicant to the letter of the law. No more, no less. So, what action are you looking for tonight, Ms. Clary?
This would be an entrance corridor overlay review application for the proposed sign.
So are you looking for a thumbs up or thumbs down on the sign?
From an entrance corridor overlay perspective, that is correct, and we do recommend that your decision would be contingent on the applicant applying for a special sign exception for the red LED lights.
Mr. Riddick, can you help me with a motion on
Which
this?
you do not have to approve. If their sign if red LED lights are integral to their sign and you're not gonna approve it, then you can tell them you're not gonna approve it. But it's really a question of, does their sign meet the entrance corridor overlay guidelines? That's the question tonight. It's not about an exception. They're not asking for anything over and above what the law provides for regular signs. The question is, does it meet your guidelines or not? Would you approve their sign as presented?
And staff is saying that does not meet our guidelines.
No, they're saying it does. But it would not if they use the red LED lighting. So if that's their proposal, then you could say, we're not gonna approve this with red LED lighting, bring us something different.
My intention is to hold them to the letter of the law with no special exceptions.
Right, well then you can.
So how do I make that motion?
You can, well, they're entitled to a sign,
Agreed.
okay? And the question is, for you tonight, is what they're presenting consistent with your ECO guidelines? And if it is, you should approve it. If it's not, you don't have to. And if I understand their application correctly, what they're proposing includes red LED lighting, which they will require they'll have to be required to make an application for a sign exception, which you're pretty much saying you're not gonna give them. So I would say that you could, if you have any other conditions, any other problems with the sign, you need to say what they are. But if you are concerned that their sign is predicated on red LED lighting and you're not gonna give them a special sign exception, then you can move to deny it based on their inclusion of red LED lighting, which you're not gonna give an exception for.
Can I interject? Due to my ignorance, if you light it with a white light behind a red letter, is it still gonna be red? And if you light it with a red light behind a red letter, is it still gonna be red?
It probably is.
But what color is the tobacco? Is that blue or red?
Is that gonna be LED?
Because I don't understand what the red LED lights gain us.
White behind. The problem, Dr. Pope, is one that you have just identified. There's nobody here to answer your questions. And just based on that fact, you could table this thing and tell them to come and explain what they want to do.
I make a motion that we table this until the applicant is available.
I still like to discuss it a little bit more. I have a problem with their advertising as well. I would like to see the Kratom vape, cigar, hookah, and grocery disappear.
That's entirely reasonable. But it would be a whole lot easier for you to express that if somebody was standing right there that you could talk to.
Back, I don't know how long I've been on this commission, but it's been a while, but we had at least a 2-hour discussion on a LED gas station, red letters, green letters, because it was too many colors on a sign.
About a year ago.
And we got multiple colors on a sign when we had an ultimate discussion of something that we couldn't even control because it was a standard. This is not a standard.
Yes. The exception for the gas stations was because it was almost like an industry practice, that you had your regular fuel in, what, green or something?
Yeah.
You had your diesel or something in red. It was pretty much just a standard industry practice, is why we approved that. So,
But more I guess I'm getting at more monochrome lighting of some sort, whatever the color may be or whatever we are thinking, but it would be more monochromatic would be more appropriate.
yes.
While I don't want to see this business here, I also don't feel that we have a legal ground to say that it can't, and I don't want to hold this business to any standard that we would not hold another to. Dr. Pope, I agree with you 100%. I don't like to see these words across the bottom either. But do we have a legal standing to say, well, you can't say vape on your sign or cigar, or we can't advertise these things? I mean, what is again, I want to hold them to the legal standard of the law, no more, no less.
Well, can you think of another example in town of similar messaging on a store sign?
No?
No, I cannot.
Okay.
So it's not in keeping with the,
And that's what I was noticing last night during my travel. I don't see signs with this much information and graphics on it. I really didn't. Most of the signs are pretty just straightforward. No flash, no frill.
Well, the tobacco and mart part identifies the nature of the business. They've gone further than that and have
Said what they're selling.
been more
I
specific.
think it would be a lot easier if we did have the applicant here that we could talk to. Well, we're just saying, well, we think, they think, this isn't spelled out very well, other than the fact they want to do red LEDs.
You have a motion on the floor by
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs.
the motion still stands.
And second,
To table.
To table, yes,
To
sir.
table.
Okay, which I was not that fond of. I was ready to deny it altogether.
I will say that we do treat window signs as signage, and some of the other vape shops in town do advertise on their windows their products as well.
Did we approve those signs with that? I don't remember those signs ever coming through being approved with.
So there is administrative approval in the ECO if a sign does not exceed 150 square feet. It does not have to come before the Planning Commission for ECO approval. One of the vape shops that was located off of Ben's Church did receive a violation letter because of their window signage with their lights. I believe they had flashing green and white lights on their windows that we had them remove.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a substitute motion to deny this application.
Second.
I would withdraw my second on the previous.
So depending on me withdrawing my motion, so.
We learned a new ugly little tool.
You have to debate the substitute motion first, and then if the substitute motion fails, then it comes back to your motion.
Okay.
But what's the basis for your denial? Because they're entitled to a sign. If you're gonna deny it, you need to tell them why. Because if you don't tell them why, it's arbitrary.
Due to the internal red LEDs.
Based on their representation that it's gonna be an internal, what about the text?
The text. We don't include that?
Yes. Removal of the text. The text specifically,
You're denying it because they've included the text.
correct. Specifically, kratom, vape, cigar, hookah, grocery.
Okay,
But
but we have,
also multicolor.
And that is multicolor.
Well, you can't say multicolored because we have multicolored signs all the time. I mean, almost every sign is multicolored if you think about it.
Yes, but let's look at Caliber Collision, who has a rainbow in their name, but their Caliber Collision, if it's a black background, white letters, and a rainbow in it, because that's their logo. But these are, to me, multicolor means Planet Tobacco and Mark should all be the same color. We shouldn't be emphasizing different words and different colors. We should, in my opinion, have a monochromatic background that, or color palette. Now,
I'm not
whatever
arguing
color
with you,
they
but-
choose, we can do, but we don't need a rainbow of colors across the lettering, in my opinion. And
But I don't think you can say this because, I mean, 7-Eleven is multicolored, there's red and green.
Red, yeah, I was
There's,
gonna say orange and green.
Sunoco is blue and orange. I
Orange.
mean, blue
Yeah,
and
but that's a
yellow.
pressed plastic sign that's all one unit. These are individual letters that are channel letters.
Dr. Pope, would you say that it's not in compliance with G4 of the entrance corridor overlay as the colors, shapes, graphics, lettering, and appropriate materials that complement the materials and color scheme of the building, including the accent and trim colors, are not being followed?
Certainly is in clash with that, yes, I would think.
sounds good.
That's a much better way to phrase it, Ms. Clary. Thank you.
That's a very good
Sounds
way to
good.
say that, Dr.
Yes.
Pope.
That's why we have Tammy.
Yes. I think that's what Dr. Pope exactly meant.
I'm not that eloquent.
Very good, Tom.
Oh, but you are.
Okay, so we have a second motion here to table the application in a second.
No? We have a-
No?
The
We ignored that?
substitute-
Do we ignore that?
The substitute motion,
The su-
the substitute motion is on the floor and has to be debated and disposed of first. If it fails, then you're back to Mr. Gibbs' original motion.
Can I rescind my motion?
You may.
I rescind my motion. Let's make it easy.
And who second?
I already did that.
Thank you.
So the only motion on the floor is Mr. Pax, which has been seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And I think if, you might try this better than me, Ms. Claire, but I think it's to deny based on the inclusion of the text and because the applicant has proposed red LED lighting, and then because it's not consistent with what provision, Ms. Clary?
G4 of the ECO overlay guidelines.
So there's three bases for denial.
That is how I intended to originally present my motion. Mr. Riddick.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to deny this application based on the red LED light request, the extra text, and it's not in compliance with the ECO guidelines G.4. Any further discussion? None? Call for the vote.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Davison?
A very strong yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Mr. Swecker?
Yes.
And Chairman Bryan.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion is adopted to deny this application. Thank you. And item number 8 tonight is a discussion item. This is a text amendment for recreational substances. Could we have the staff report, please, Director Clary?
Yes, thank you, sir. At its Monday, September 25th, 2023 committee meetings, Town Council inquired about regulating vape/smoke stores within the town of Smithfield. As it currently stands, these vape and smoke stores would be classified as retail sales establishments. According to our zoning ordinance, we do define retail sales establishment as any building wherein the primary occupation is the sale of merchandise in small quantities in broken lots or parcels, not in bulk, for the use or consumption by the immediate purchaser. For the purchase of this ordinance, retail sales establishments do not include automobile-oriented uses and quick-service food stores. So as the current zoning ordinance, retail sales establishments are permitted uses within the downtown district, the highway retail commercial district, the planned shopping center, heavy industrial, and planned mixed-use development. They are also special use permit items in residential office, light industrial, and commercial industrial. They are not a permitted use or special use permit in any residential zoning district, including the mobile home park zoning district. We have identified 3 vape/smoke stores that are currently operating within town limits. This would be 13404 Ben's Church Boulevard in the Cypress Run Plaza, 1264 Smithfield Plaza in the Smithfield Shopping Plaza, and 1921 South Church Street in the Smithfield Square Shopping Center. We have also provided maps in your attachment. This would identify the location of these 3 vape smoke shops that are currently operating in town. And then we also have where retail sales establishments are permitted uses. And then finally, where retail sales establishments are permitted uses by special use permit. We have prepared a red line draft attachment of the zoning ordinance for Planning Commission's review and discussion. These amendments include additional language for regulating smoke vape shops and smoke vape lounges while removing potential ambiguity by defining both smoke vape shops and smoke vape lounges. Potentially where we have these items, residential office, it would not be a permitted use nor SUP. A downtown, a potential SUP for the use. Highway retail commercial, again, potential SUP. Planned shopping center, potential SUP. Planned mixed-use development as a potential SUP. Again, for light industrial, commercial industrial, and heavy industrial, all providing special use permits. We do want to also include definitions in our Article 13. This would exclude smoke vape shops and lounges within the definition of retail sales establishments. And then we would also provide a definition for a smoke vape shop along with a smoke vape lounge. We would also exclude smoke vape establishments from our definition of convenience store. We do recommend a robust discussion and a favorable consensus on the return of this application as a public hearing for the Planning Commission as a text amendment. We also provided additional research that we found in order to come to this consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. I've read this. I take it that everyone else has. I'm pretty much in favor of what's been done here by staff. I think they've done a thorough job, and I think it's explained well. Only question for me is, in the highlighted areas, defining smoke vape establishment, you have a portion there, it's in red, but there's a portion, drugstores, retail food stores, that's in yellow. Please, could you make the distinction?
Yes, so in the limited amount of time that we did have to research this per town council's request, we did find other localities that did a percentage of shelf spacing in order to help define what constituted a vape shop versus, your regular mart per se. Again, with the limited staff, we really don't favor kind of visiting these establishments to try to determine. So we kind of included that as something to think about. Again, just kind of bringing this to Planning Commission for this discussion to kind of help foster this definition.
So with that, the drugstores, retail food stores, grocery stores, I mean, you can go into, convenience stores now and you see a small section that's CBD or vape or whatever. I'm not trying to get rid of that. That's not my try. But this wouldn't, we want to get rid of the vape shops. I want to get rid of the vape shops, excuse me. This would be considered still allowed to be sold though, right? A small display of some sort or?
Correct. We haven't, again, it's highlighted because we just hadn't kind of perfected it yet. But we do want to distinguish between the shops that just have that small area of the vaping products for sale versus the opposite of that, where you have the vape shop that has the small area of other grocery items. And again, we haven't exactly figured out the fine line on how to do that. Other localities did use a percentage of shelf space in their calculations.
What was percentage of shelf space? You remember what the number was?
I believe it was more than 50%.
That's a fairly large number.
I don't remember which locality it was, but there was one that also had a restriction of having a vape shop within so many feet of a residential zoning area. And
That included schools, there are other facilities too.
Exactly.
With
And-
additional restrictions on lower distance from.
So I do want to clarify, it was Chesterfield, and they call it recreational substances at 25% or more of its total inventory, or 15% more of its total display area.
And that, as we do this, changing this subject, touch a little bit, Virginia has approved recreational marijuana, but they haven't decided how it's coming to market yet. And so in some of the ordinances, they're saying that towns and counties and cities will be able to disallow recreational marijuana sale shops and their places. Could we include in this language, if we chose, vape / smoke shop / recreational marijuana shop, so we can kill two birds with one stone, or are we better to address that later down the road? Because I kind of put these hand in hand.
Staff has been working on it, where we would define a cannabis dispensing facility, and that would include the retail sales of cannabis, where we have it limited to the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., can't be located within 1,000 feet of a school, and then it can't be located within 1,000 feet of any other dispensing facilities. Again, we hadn't perfected that yet.
So maybe we address that at a different piece.
But we do have it, we're in the
You're in the
research process
Sure, I
of it.
understand.
We just have not had a chance to finalize it and bring it before Planning Commission.
For what it's worth, my thought process on that is to not allow cannabis dispensaries in the town of Smithfield. That's kind of where I'm going with this. But that's a different subject for a different day. But that's,
You probably can't prohibit them, but you can do like you do with,
entertainment,
yes.
exotic
You
entertainment.
make it, it's only permitted in industrial, heavy industrial sites and with a special use permit.
And it was like $1,000 a day fine or tax
There's-
that goes along with it. I remember reading that, what is interesting.
There are ways to do things
Okay.
which are effective, which comply with the law, and I don't think you can just, if the General Assembly makes it legal, I don't think you can
I
do
thought-
otherwise.
I believe reading in the General Assembly's language that they were going to allow for you to prohibit them in your town as part of
I
the,
haven't seen that yet, but that's.
I remember reading that somewhere, but that's for a different day.
Yeah, but just, instead of calling it vapes, well, I mean, Ms. Clary's done a really good job in a very short period of time. But what about the approach that Chesterfield took and called it recreational substance retail? That's a lot broader than vape.
And then they define recreational substance here.
They do. And they have those limits from, minimum location limits, like from schools and things like that already included. I mean, I'm not saying which is the better approach, I'm just saying that's more broad than just the vape shop.
But the intent is to cover both, the vape and the marijuana, if we use that terminology.
Could. I mean, I think recreational substances would include,
You would have to add that language to the definition of it.
that would be an easy thing to do then.
Right. So some of the, I like that suggestion, Mr. Riddick. Some of the things that she's kind of left us with questions at is that our zoning ordinance proposed amendment, so she suggested that we prohibit it in residential office, which I'm fine with. Downtown, she says she's recommending either potential to prohibit or allow by SUP. Highway retail, and on downtown, I would like to allow it by SUP. That way we have control over it, because you don't know. It gives you an avenue in the future if something changes or sentiment changes. Not that I want to see it, but that's how we control things, right,
I
Dr.
would
Pope?
say absolutely no in downtown.
You say absolutely no?
I don't want it on Main Street in front of the bakery and all the other stuff going on. So for me,
I don't either.
our historic downtown area, for me, would be no. Just a flat out no, not there.
I'm okay with that too.
Kind of like the one with the sign that's in front of us, or the sign establishment. That's why I like sort of that restriction of so many feet away from a residential area as well, because that's a very narrow business corridor, really close to a lot of residential, and bringing the traffic and the people in that come and visit these places to get it right out and onto residential streets and whatever. Yeah, I guess the business establishments aren't any better, but at least having somewhat of a buffer between this and apartment complexes or whatever, to me, makes sense. So I like that distance from residential as well to be included.
5 miles would work for me.
We gotta keep them safe. So highway retail, planned shopping centers, PMUDs, she's all suggested that they're allowed only by SUP. And then light industrial, commercial industrial, and heavy industrial is potential SUP, which I'd probably be okay with SUPs on that. I would like to, if we can tonight, it would be really nice to get something to make a recommendation to town council so we can push this through.
No, it has to go, it'd have to be.
Would we go to
You have to come
public
back
hearing?
here for a plan, we'll have to come up with
Okay.
an ordinance that would be advertised for a public hearing here before we go to town council.
I just like to do this quickly, that's all. I'd like to not have somebody sneak in under the radar here. That's my intention.
I mean, the other piece that I liked, I think it was Norfolk that had that, is that if this is primarily a vape shop, that all glass has to be unblocked, or whatever they use that term. All glass portions of windows, doors along the front facade of the shop shall be maintained as transparent and shall not be heavily tinted or obscured. They need to know who's in there buying a substance. Do they look 21? Do they not? So that to me would be no signs in the windows and things of that nature if it's primarily a vape shop. But again, I don't understand how you're gonna say the Supreme Station sells stuff, but this place is primarily and one isn't. What's a mart, still the definitional thing of this is still bothersome for me. How are you gonna, what's gonna separate it out?
I think we have to do as Ms. Clary suggested, some percentage of shelf space or inventory.
So what you really want is a hybrid of all the different ones that you want to take the best parts of the ones that everybody else has already done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
right.
Indeed.
And I understand that Ms. Clary's point is like, we can't enforce every one of these. True, but if there were complaints about, you know, Joe's convenience store and it's all bongs and vapes and a little bit of grocery, then we have at least a mechanism to enforce it with.
I haven't heard one citizen that was in favor of this vape shop.
I've heard from many that are not,
That's what I.
adamantly.
Yes, that was my point.
Well, let me ask this question. If we already have an ordinance on the book about adult entertainment and novelties and facilities, how is it such that the drugstores can sell adult products currently?
What?
Our drugstores have adult products on their shelf.
Well, yeah, but they're classified as
Medicinal.
medicinal. The pornography element is not present at the drugstore, or at least not that I know of.
No, it's not, but those products are for sale there. I don't know if that's the intention of our ordinance to say this isn't a shop versus that these products are to be sold. You can always disguise all these vape products as, put them anywhere. I don't know what Food Lion sells because I don't go to that section of the store, but I don't know if they sell all these vape products and
But
pipes and glassware and everything there
That would
either.
not be illegal. It's not illegal Food Lion is not a vape shop. And they're not gonna be classified as a recreational substance retail shop either, because the predominant part of their business is selling groceries and related items. It's a minuscule portion of their
Shelf space.
shelf space. But there are already 3 vape shops in town, and that's what they do. It's the predominant part of their business, and that's what I think you're seeking to, I assume that's what you're seeking to regulate.
Yes. I'm good with the heavy industrial suggestion. Excluding the other zonings.
You know, with respect to the percentage of shelf space, I'm in favor of a number of 5%. That's a very small amount.
Works.
I mean, that'll allow the, convenience stores that exist that are truly convenience stores to sell vapes and whatnot, but in a very limited capacity.
It sounds as if there is a lot to compose here to come up with an amendment to the ordinance. If we're taking elements from several different municipalities to come up with our own. I think that is going to be time consuming.
Well, that's not for you to do. That's for Ms. Clary. She's already taken a big wag at this, and I
Big-
guess she and I will sit down and take all the comments that you made and try to mash it all together and make it work. And bring it back for you to look at.
We can't just approve that right now?
You cannot.
Okay. No, I was thinking in terms of a committee, getting a committee together, go through these things and come up with stuff. But if
can
you and
a
Director
committee-
Clary,
If you want to make it take about 3 times longer, create a committee.
Yeah, okay. You know, I'm looking for a solution as quickly as we can as well.
You've just given her a great deal of guidance, and everything you just said, and we'll just sit down and take, it's like a Chinese menu, one from column A and one from column B, and try to take all the parts that you like and put it together and bring back something for you to look at.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to what they should be looking at? What they should be considering?
I really like what Chesterfield County's done.
Me too.
Anything specific in there
Well,
that you make certain that it's
their
included?
definition of recreational substances and stuff like that, well, just basically everything as far as their distance from schools, all that stuff. Theirs is a very concise, and I just like the way they've done it.
What's your linear foot from from schools and things of that nature?
Right,
What is your number?
5 feet.
Can be
That's
within
next
5
door
feet.
to, 5 feet's
You
next
meant
door
5
to.
miles.
The only
No,
school,
5 miles, I meant.
yeah, the only school we'd be looking at is West Side.
Got
That's the only school in the town limits.
I think if you did 2,500 feet, which is a half a mile, you
You would keep it away from West
would
Side.
be pretty good.
Yeah, well, theirs says 2,000 linear feet, which is,
Just for context, West Side's approximately 2,500 feet from the intersection of the Route 10 bypass and Main Street right there.
That would keep it out of that corridor.
Seems like that's a pretty good number.
yeah.
And probably pretty similar to to Waterworks Road, which is the other.
Yes. On the opposite side. Yeah, of the school, yes.
What about limiting hours of operation? That's part of the Chesterfield guidance.
They do from 8 to 8, Monday through Sunday.
Eight to 8?
That's Chesterfield.
About 6 to 6:30.
What's the week?
I also, go ahead.
12 to 3.
12 to 3. I also like how Chesterfield has added, unless modified or otherwise conditioned by the Board of Supervisors. Whenever I look at legislation, I always try and think of the things that we haven't thought of yet, and that would give us an opportunity later down the road, if there was something that made sense to planning commission or town council at that time to make an exception. It at least allows for an exception without having to go back and change the ordinance. It's a good move in my opinion, because the expression "we don't know what we don't know" is, well, when I first heard it, I thought it was a dumb expression, but it really, I think of it a lot now, because we don't know what we don't know about this. So it allows us to modify it if need be. I don't know why we would. I have no idea why we ever would.
This is a particular statement?
The Chesterfield County says, or unless modified or otherwise conditioned by the Board of Supervisors. That's one of their
Okay.
their pieces in there, and I think it would be wise of us to at least keep that in our ordinance.
So me, I would favor 2,500 feet.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
8 to 8 or 8 to 7 would be reasonable for me, and not obstructing the glass, and not using bright LED lights wrapped around the windows from the inside.
I understand the 8 to 8, but I'm trying to figure out who will be up that early in the morning.
Going to work.
And that's what their intent, that early in the morning.
If you go 24/7, you see, I mean, yeah, people are up.
10 to 8, what about 10 to 8?
You should not craft an ordinance that is completely on its face unreasonable. Unless you want to get sued.
what would be the difference between 8 in the morning and 10? Other than the fact that you don't want to get up at 8?
I mean, it is more restrictive. I mean, it's 2 hours shorter operation. And just off to, you know, and that time of morning, most people dealing with traffic trying to go to work. You want to add traffic? Somebody want to go to the vape shop? Just saying.
And did we come up with a percentage of 5% of shelf
5%.
space, all that, those line items?
Yes.
Yeah, 5% may be a little low.
A little low because Chesterfield is 25 and 15.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, even if you go to Royal Farms, the tobacco on the back counter there's a significant supply of
And that's
chewing
not-
tobacco.
and that's
on
not, doesn't
whatever.
approach 5% of their, that doesn't even approach 5% of their.
But would even, I mean, would the cigarette display though, would that be considered under it? I mean, is that,
Yeah.
because that's a good point.
Yeah,
I mean, if you go into the Supreme there, and they have the cigarettes and all that behind their counter there, that may be 5%.
that's gonna, I think
Yeah.
that's probably too restrictive.
Yeah, and then I'm not trying to,
You don't want,
right.
That's what I was saying, I think 5% is
I
too
think,
low a number.
I think Chesterfield's probably got it.
What is theirs at?
15%.
15, okay. That's still a small
25%
number.
of the total inventory, or 15% if it's on display.
I stopped at the Rushmere Food Mart recently on my way to work one day. And they're in the county, so this doesn't apply, but they have, at the checkout counter, they have, what do they call them? Water tobacco pipes, which is, which we called bongs. That's what, and then they also had, I guess, the pipes that you would smoke marijuana out. That's what you always see people that smoke like a pipe. And those are permitted in these stores because they say they're not for marijuana use, whatever. But they're right at the front of the counter. That's where you really check out at. So so if you have your kids with you, if you have young kids with you, they're right there when you're checking out. My point in this is, could we control some of the locations of those types of accessories so that they're not right there where everybody sees them every time you check out? So that, when you go to Royal Farms and you get your chicken and you bought your gas and you go up front and there's a water tobacco pipe sitting right there for sale, that your kids go, oh, what's that? It's like, well, I don't know, could we control where that is located in the store so it's not? Or how?
Okay, let's say you do. Who's gonna enforce it?
Ooh, well,
They're not.
Deputy Chief Meyer might swing by.
No, they're not.
It would have to be complaint driven, I imagine.
That's, the town
Complaint.
doesn't have the staff, the town doesn't have the staff to enforce the complaints we get now.
That's true.
Well, true, but at least having it would hopefully deter some of it. I understand that'd be difficult to enforce. I think that the 15% is difficult to enforce. I think it's worth having, though. I don't even know if you can worry about location, so there would be, but as a retailer, you also want folks like, oh yeah, I broke my bong last night, I need to get another one, glad I'm here.
It used to be called paraphernalia.
Paraphernalia, yes, that's the term we're looking for, yes.
Well, it's not paraphernalia anymore.
That's not,
Well, not really, because it used to be, just possessing it used to be illegal.
That's,
And now, hardly anything's illegal.
Chesterfield calls it any pipe, vaporizer, or other type of device, wrappings, or accessories associated with the consumption or inhalation of the above-mentioned substances and materials. That's their term for paraphernalia.
Well, the world has changed because there's
I
a
understand.
store in the Outer Banks that's what they sell. But if you say the word bong in the store, they throw you out because it's been redefined as
Water, tobacco.
water
pipes.
tobacco pipes.
Well, can we restrict the location by putting in some distance from the door, distance from the register?
That's a slippery slope. I love donuts and it make me fat, so could you move those to the back as well? I mean, when you start getting
Yeah,
restricted.
20 feet, 30 feet from the register,
Less.
from the front door?
They're selling tobacco behind the counter now. I mean, so every store you go to, the tobacco is behind the counter, so,
But we're talking about this vape stuff.
I mean,
Yeah, but I'm not talking about vapes, I'm just talking about the accessory. I understand your point, Mr. Gibbs, I thought it was, yeah.
How about a room in the back of the store with a doorway with a black curtain that says no one under 21?
And you have to park out in the back and come in the back door.
Which member of this council is a doctor? I can't remember.
I don't think we should get into limiting it, other than shelf space.
Yeah,
It's going to be too hard to
Yes.
figure it all out.
and it's really not enforceable anyway.
We're just
From the
creating
door?
headaches for ourselves.
A distance from the door, the register?
If we want to do that, Mr. Chairman, that's probably the only way that we could do it is you cannot have this material within 20 or 25 feet of the door, or whatever was appropriate. But it's probably a slippery slope, like Mr. Gibbs said. We're not going to cure everything.
and if you move it from the door, it becomes a high shrinkage item. So now Chief Myers is going to be at 7-Eleven every day because they're in the back stealing it. So it is a double-edged sword, no matter,
People are going to find a way to get what they want.
exactly.
So we had discussed the 2,500 feet. Would the planning commission be interested in using the language that a special use permit authorizing this use shall fully consider the proximity of the shop to schools, religious institutions, libraries, other institutional uses, and residential uses, and shall limit hours of operation accordingly? This would allow you flexibility in any proposed shop around town limits, not just the 2,500 feet from schools.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Where'd
You've
that-
done this before.
Where'd that
Good.
come from? Where'd that
And
come
I would like to take credit for it, however, it was included in the city of Norfolk as their last item under their smoke or vape shop.
No, I mean, all of it. I mean, your research is terrific because now we can pick and choose all the good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe it will be so good that everybody will want to adopt ours.
Yes, I would commend staff for the research they've done because this is nice and it does give you a lot of ability to pick and choose the best of the best.
Best practices.
What about the vape lounges?
But the what, Tom?
Vape lounges.
These are, my understanding is we're doing these for both, the vape shop and the lounge. This ordinance considers both. Are you seeing it differently?
Yes, because
Each of them would be a special use permit, it'd be a separate item.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But the conditions would be the same for both.
All the definitions and all that still apply. I mean, you'll have to define what a vape lounge is, but that's okay.
they've got it under James City County.
Right.
But for me, it would be no on-site use.
Do away with the vape lounge.
Yes, I agree.
You say no on-site use?
Yeah.
Not as a gathering place for a group of people to have on-site use of.
We have one in Smithfield, right at Smithfield Square. Is that a vape lounge?
Do not know.
Wait, what?
It's by the ABC store.
Is it a lounge?
Oh,
Is it a lounge?
I don't know, I've never been in it.
Neither has town staff. However, we do believe that it's just a vape shop. It's not operating as a lounge.
I'll do some medical research.
It at least used to be a lounge, because I kind of always laughed when I rode by, because there was a pool table in there and a bunch of kids just blowing this crazy things of smoke in there. I'm like, who would do that? But there was a pool table in there at the time, and they, anyhow. At one point, it was a lounge.
They don't do that anymore?
I don't know. I haven't been by in a while. My favorite Chinese restaurant's there, and my favorite ABC store is also there, so that's a. Well, I think we've given some pretty good guidance. Is there anything else that you'd like clarification on?
Just to recap, we're looking at Chesterfield's use of their recreational substances. We're allowing it as special use permit items, excluding the downtown district. We're also going to incorporate Norfolk's glass window remaining uncovered, including the stipulation unless modified by town council, with the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., with the 15% shelf space, and then also including that language that allows, in consideration of the special use permit, allows the proximity of institutional libraries and in other areas.
Any further suggestions?
So is the 15% total shelf space of the store or 15% of the recreational substance store? Because, I mean, you've got tobacco products, you've got your cigarettes and everything else, and you're gonna have some certain linear foot of that. Is it 15% of the recreational substances or 15% of the total shelf space of the mart?
Cigarettes, cigars, and all that are included in recreational substances definition.
So if the store had 15% or more of those items, then they would be considered under the recreational substance.
15% of Food Lion is a whole lot different than 15% of Supreme,
Yep.
Correct. It is.
but that's of all total products.
Display.
Total display shelf, so I guess it's limited to not the store, but the shelf itself. Looking at Chesterfield,
Chesterfield is 25% total inventory, 15% display.
a shelf area.
But we're including tobacco in this?
Yes.
Yes.
They are, Chesterfield is, as far as their definition of recreational substances.
So there's a set of shops in Suffolk next door to a Vintage Tavern, and one of those is a cigar shop. And it's pretty nice. It's a cigar shop. It doesn't have any of the things that attract a nuisance crowd. I hate saying terms like that, but anyhow, it doesn't attract. And if a cigar shop that sold cigars and cutters and humidors and all that wanted to come downtown, I would not have a problem with that. Perhaps that's where we use the exception by town council, if it made sense. If there was a CBD shop that was selling all the paraphernalia and everything else that want to come downtown, yeah, 100%, don't want to see that there either. But when we use tobacco in it, that it includes cigarettes, cigars, smokeless tobacco, and pipe tobacco. And then it goes on with the other things that we were kind of doing. So that 15% shelf space would be, you know, I think of Royal Farms, I think of the cigarette display they have in the back, that would certainly be counted, but sorry, I was just kind of talking out loud. I don't really have a point there.
That was staff's reasoning behind including it as a special use permit in the downtown, was not focused on a vape lounge or vape shop, but more because of our definition including, would include a cigar sales shop.
That's sort of a reach, but likelihood is slim and none, but maybe not.
Well, I mean, maybe at the Mercantile, if they're, I mean, that'd be a very,
But it still wouldn't, that wouldn't be, it wouldn't, in the Mercantile, it would not constitute 15% of the overall shelf space.
yeah, right, I understand that too.
Now, with shelf space, when you go in 7-Eleven, let's just say it's 25 feet long on a shelf run, okay, for the candy aisle. But normally the shelves have 3 or 4 shelves. So is that 100 feet or is that 25 feet? 4 shelves times 25, or is that 25 because it's just a linear foot down the aisle? So you're 15% of 25 or 15% of 100?
No, it would be, well, shelves are shelves. I mean, if there's 4 shelves, that's 4 shelves. 4 times 25 is 100.
Okay.
And it says the total display shelf area.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure we understand where 15%, is that we're too restrictive or not restrictive enough?
And that's why I make the distinction between tobacco and these vapes material. The stores have so much tobacco now. Regular retail stores have so much tobacco now.
They certainly don't have.
So what are they gonna do?
No, that's why we're not making it 5%.
Yeah, what are they gonna do if they take on this vape material? They're gonna and it's already at 15%. What do they do? Reduce their tobacco? I think the retailers will have a problem with that.
They'll make a business decision about what they want to do. There are stores outside the town of Smithfield that are tobacco stores.
Yes.
Yes.
Cigarette stores.
Yes.
The reason being they're not in the town of Smithfield is because the county doesn't have cigarette tax. The town does. That's why there are no cigarette shops in the town of, cigarette stores in the town of Smithfield, because we charge cigarette tax. They don't in the county. And I don't think I still think they don't have cigarette tax.
They do not.
And people drive from all over Creation to come to Alaway County to buy their cigarettes because they're untaxed. So that's a store that would have way more than, I haven't ever been in one, but because I don't smoke, but I'm assuming that they have a tremendous portion of their shelf space devoted to cigarettes, because that's what they sell. You're not gonna have that in Smithfield, but these hybrid stores with the vape shops, where they're selling all these other new and wonderful products that seem to be very much in demand, are popping up everywhere, and that seems to be what you're trying to avoid. You're not trying to put your convenience stores out of business. That's not the intent. But you're setting a reasonable threshold. If they want to do what they're doing, then they're going to be classified as a retail recreational substance retail site. And that means they can't unless they get a special use permit and meet all the requirements.
Yes.
I think that's what you're trying to do. So do it.
Yes, I'm just having a problem with this leap from tobacco to a vape. But we're trying to include both of them when tobacco is taking up so much of these retailers' space already.
Well, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
If you go to Food Line, they have to go somewhere to get the cigarettes. I mean, they're not right there. They do have a little CBD display that's enclosed in plexiglass that somebody has to open up and sell that. That's at the checkout, at least on one lane. I don't know the one I always go to. But anyway, the cigarettes are not just rampant everywhere.
They're all locked up.
Beg your pardon?
They're all locked up.
Absolutely, because they're so expensive for one thing.
I don't think the 15% threshold is not gonna impact your convenience stores and your grocery stores. It's not gonna be a problem.
No.
That's the intention, is to not impact those.
Yes, yes, that's my concern, not to impact those that's already.
I'd like to revisit the downtown zoning ordinance. When Dr. Pope suggested that we prohibit them downtown, I'd like to allow that by SUP, only because we're including cigars in that. I would not, gosh, that's slippery. So if the Mercantile wanted to have somebody in there that sold cigars, I would not have a problem with that. If somebody wanted to open a small cigar shop downtown, I would not have a problem with that. But by this ordinance, that would not be allowed at all. It would
If
be
you give them
prohibited.
an SUP for cigars, what stops them from coming in and start selling vape?
Can you put that in your SUP, that you can only sell cigars?
Okay, but maybe so. I'm not so sure you kind of.
But if they're under 15%, they can have it anyways.
Right.
And then how are you gonna define shelf space?
Well,
in the
not if you
Mercantile?
prohibit it in downtown, you can't. If you prohibit it in downtown, it can't be sold downtown at all. So by prohibiting it,
No, that's not true at all. You can sell cigars, you can sell cigars in your store right now. There's nothing that stops you from putting cigars in your wine shop.
but wouldn't this ordinance prohibit that if we prohibit?
No, it would prohibit.
We're prohibiting
Having a
shop.
shop.
See, 15,
Nothing but.
you don't hit the threshold till you get up above 15%.
Okay.
Your store can sell cigars today and cigarettes today without a SUP, as long as you don't exceed under your new ordinance, as long as you don't
Exceed
decide to make it
15%
more
of
than
the store.
15% of your overall shelf space.
We're just saying you can't open a dedicated shop downtown.
Right. And then if we have the piece in there that allowed for it, for unforeseen circumstances essentially, and council wanted to allow a shop, which is probably unlikely. We have the option, okay, I'm good. I'm good, now I understand that better, okay.
All right, let's go one further step. The Mercantile, how are those stalls rented out or leased? Because if I went in and said, oh, okay, I want to open up a vape section, is that less than 15%, they don't need it? Or are we going to say you can't open up a vape section downtown?
Well, I think they're 10 by 10. And so then the question is, do you count that the 10 by 10 space is 15% or 15% of the Mercantile as a whole?
I think we would have to be more restrictive if you want to keep them out of the Mercantile.
So instead of a 15% shelf space, do we need to do a square footage?
It'd be 15% of their, 15% of that particular business. The vendors, 15% of the vendors sell shelf space.
Is that how we define that business as a vendor-specific retail space?
Theoretically, if you want to keep it out of the Mercantile, this would say that if they devote more than 15%, if the vendor devotes more than 15% of his shelf space to recreational substances, they have to get a SUP. Because otherwise, somebody walks in and sets up a vape shop, right?
Right. Which is what we're trying to prevent in a multi-vendor space.
Correct. Why don't we take a whack at it and bring it back to you and let you look at it?
Yep, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Because it doesn't have to be adopted next week, next month, but sooner the better.
Before we approve that time.
Well, that's not gonna help. That's called an ex post facto law. You can't do that.
Okay.
One real quick question. If we got exactly how I wanted and it's done and town council approves it as presented, what does that do to the 3 existing shops in town now?
Their grandfather.
The grandfather, okay.
You can't, that's what I was saying. You can't, it's called an ex post facto law. You
Yeah.
can't pass a law today that outlaws something that was lawful yesterday just put somebody out of business.
Yep, got it, no problem. I think that's appropriate.
So we think we have what we want? At least to take a swag at it? Yes?
We're close.
Okay. And of course, everyone wants to get this done as quickly as possible. Okay. Item number 9, discussion item. This is a text amendment for dealers and pawnbrokers. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, sir. Keeping with our retail sales establishment, we did receive an inquiry for a potential new business. They wanted to incorporate the buying and selling of gold and jewelry. Currently, our zoning ordinance does not address buying of items. Again, we've defined retail sales establishment, and we've identified where they are permitted uses within the zoning district. We also identified where pawn shops, payday lending establishments, and check cashing establishments do require special use permits. This would be in the residential office, downtown, highway retail commercial, planned shopping center, PMUD, light and heavy industrial. Again, retail sales establishments are not a permitted use or a special use permit in any residential district or the mobile home park zoning district. Because our zoning ordinance does not address buying, town staff do not have a mechanism for approving this new proposed business of buying and selling gold and jewelry. More specifically, Virginia Code does address precious metal dealers. This would be in Chapter 41. And then the town code does address and incorporate dealers in precious metals and gems in Section 26-10. Which states that the chief of police is hereby authorized to issue permits for dealers in precious metals and gems as defined in the Code of Virginia, 54-1-4100, under the conditions and terms and fees set forth. We went ahead and provided the definition for a dealer under the Code of Virginia, and then also what the definition of dealer does not include. We are providing the recommendation of including dealers as a permitted use by special use permit only. This would accompany the proposed uses of pawn shops, payday lending establishments, and check cashing establishments. We did provide a map identifying the location of permissible pawn shops, payday lending establishments, check cashing establishments, and potential dealers by this special use permit only. We also provided definitions in order to avoid any future confusion. We would define dealer as a precious metal dealer, and then additionally a secondhand dealer, not precious metal dealer. And finally, including a definition for pawnbroker. Staff do recommend a robust discussion and a favorable consensus on returning this item as a public hearing for Planning Commission. We do suggest, in coordination with the police department, that we incorporate the Code of Virginia that addresses Chapter 41 precious metal dealers into our town code. And additionally, the police department wanted to include the highlighted section, which is on 7B, C, and D. This is for electronic reporting requirements. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna be a devil's advocate here, because this seems to be, you lumped it in with pawn shops and payday lenders. And I'm gonna use, I grew up in Franklin, and y'all have probably seen the commercials for Liberty Coin. They own the local. I mean, it's an entirely respectable business where they buy and sell gold and silver. I mean, it's not a pawn shop, it's a, I mean, that business is not in any way, it's not sketchy in any way. So I just don't, I mean, I'm just talking from experience, because it's not a payday, it's not that kind of a business.
They're not gonna loan you money.
No,
They're either buying or selling.
If your mother's collected a bunch of gold over the years and she's just tired of it all and she wants to turn it because she needs the money, you just go in there and sell your gold, your jewelry. And there's nothing nefarious about it. So I don't understand, I'm trying, I mean, it seems to be, you're trying to lump it in with something that's a little less respectable, I think.
Well, the other side of that is we don't have to be everything to everybody. We're still a small town. If you want to sell your gold, there's other places to do it beside the town of Smithfield. The problem is when you start selling your gold, you keep seeing these signs up, we buy gold here, and then it opens up to criminals. It opens up to folks that are, stealing gold and they want to turn it into cash, and they buy and I know because when I was thinking about this, I have a very good friend who is has a jewelry shop in Kempsville, and he buys and sells Rolexes, and he buys and sells gold, and he buys and sells gems, and it's a very respectable business. But we don't have to have that in Smithfield. Smithfield's not a worse off town because there's no place to go buy or sell gold here. My initial thought is that maybe we just don't permit it. We just don't allow for buying or selling gold, and then it's real easy. You don't have to allow it at all. You don't have to have. I mean, there's a lot of rules, and the police want to be very involved, and I understand very much why they do. Because pawn shops have typically been a place to dispose of items that were stolen. And when people steal things, they are criminals. That means we would have a place for criminals in our community to sell their stolen merchandise. And that's, try hard as you might, that it will likely still happen. I just don't allow it. Go outside of town if you want to do that.
I get it. I'm just saying that, I just have a personal experience with
Yeah.
a guy he's a very well-respected businessman who runs a, Main Street business, and nobody blinks an eye at it.
Yeah, because then the other half of that is you have, the thrift stores, which are, well, that stuff's donated, but it's all resold. And then you have other pawn shops that, they're pawn shops, but they buy material, provide a service, and then sell those goods back to people who are looking for those goods. And if I buy that stuff at a auction and resell it as an antique store, if I sell it at an auction or if I sell it back to the pawn shop, is it any different when it's being resold? So from the business perspective of what they do, it's no different, but I certainly get the idea of what it opens up to with stolen goods and whatever, so there's definitely pros and cons to it. People who are looking, people who inherit things that aren't really interested in what they inherited and need a way to move it along into somebody who is. Are they gonna go market these things, they put them out there and do that? Well, this gives them the opportunity to offload those goods and put it back up for sale and create a market for it, but.
So Tammy, I'm missing something. We already have in the code, in the town code, dealers in precious metals and gems. Is that what's that? Is that a definition?
So that was taken from Town Code, it's section 26-10. And so through that, it incorporates the Code of Virginia. What we wanted to do was not only spell out in Town Code what Virginia Code says, but we also wanted to include the highlighted section, which was taken from another locality that requires the electronic
Well, I understand that, but
reporting.
this is it's in the code, but it's not in the zoning ordinance.
Correct.
So you're proposing to put it in,
We don't have it as a permitted use or a special permitted use item as a quote-unquote dealer. So we would need to add it in the applicable zoning district as a special use permit item or a permitted use per Planning Commission's decision. And then also we'd like to include it in our definitions section for clarity, if that is something that Planning Commission wants to move forward with.
I can't see a reason to permit buying and selling of gold and jewelry in the town. We're growing. We know we're gonna have growing pains. What I don't wanna be is Mercury Boulevard. And there's plenty of places to buy and sell jewelry on Mercury Boulevard. And it's an easy 25-minute trip across the bridge. And I understand your point, Bill, I really do, but
I'm not,
I
I'm
know.
not, this is not a hill to die on, I'm just asking the question.
Yeah. You know, if we had we used to have a jewelry store down there. We had a jewelry store, and maybe that'd be different, but we don't have to be everything to everybody.
Well, except that if it's a lawful business, if it's a lawful occupation, you need to provide for it. And that's, we have pawnbrokers, you don't want those either, right? So, but we have it.
They're allowed by special use.
Well, that's my whole point. If you're gonna, if we already have it in the code and define it, and it's not included in the zoning ordinance, include it in the zoning ordinance and put it in the same bucket with pawnbrokers and, what are the other things that, I was looking for it. What'd you say?
Check cashing and payday lending.
Check cashing and payday lending.
So you're saying that because it's a legal thing, that we have to have
Pretty much.
a permit, we have to allow it? We can't just, I guess that goes back to what we talked about earlier, when we can't just ban something,
Well,
just
you
make it
don't-
difficult.
The General Assembly can ban it, you can.
Right, understood, okay. That puts it a little differently.
So technically, we're just adding the term dealer to the ordinance.
And adding all these digital pieces that
Yes.
that help provide for that protection.
Right.
That's what I was going to get to.
Deputy Chief Myers, you have any comment?
So our biggest thing is these people having records of these sales, but the code already requires for it. What we're asking is in the town code to add, because the state code just requires that they bring the records to the police department every day. The standard is a electronic reporting system, and we'd like to continue with that.
You already have that system in place now?
We
currently?
do. It's currently, so the businesses it's free for, pawn shops and these gold dealers, it's free, and they log it into the system, and then police departments have to pay for the use of the system, and we can go in and look and see who bought what. So if you come to me and say, even the GameStops and stuff are required to use it. So you say someone stole my PlayStation, I can go and find out if it was sold at one of these GameStop stores. And it has the person's ID card and all their information of who sold it to the store.
But here in town, per se, we do not have a dealer. Do we have a dealer in town?
We do not.
No, okay. Okay.
But we have one inquiring to be, and if so, Mr. Riddick says we have to have at least a path to move forward with them, and it all will be by special use. And then the chief is asking us to add this additional language to it, to make it, to give them some rights. The only thing is, obviously, section D in the highlighted section changed from Chesapeake
Who
Police
decides
Department
which
to.
items get logged? Is it all items?
The state code
Is it
determines.
is it just jewelry, guns, tools?
That's a pawn shop.
The pawn shop, I think everything they buy and sell is required. The gold jewelers would just be their gold, their precious metals.
Just to add on to that, Virginia code does state that the permit will be issued for 1 year. So this would be an option to have the applicant come before Planning Commission every year thereafter to review their application as well.
So do anyone see any need for additional statements to be added? Or does it seem pretty much complete as presented?
Yeah. For me, it's still, do we want this downtown in our historic district?
Well, it wouldn't be. It's, what zones are you proposing, Tammy?
Right now, if we added it to the zoning ordinance, pawn shops, payday lending establishments, and check cashing establishments require a special use permit in residential office, downtown, highway retail commercial, planned shopping center, the PMUD, and then light and heavy industrial.
Could we simply remove downtown from that list?
Well, why wouldn't you take out downtown and residential office? Because that's right in the middle of, by its very nature, in the middle of, it's a mixture of residences and commercial.
Not permitted within 2,500 feet of schools and vape shops.
So there's a distinction between dealer and pawn shop,
There is.
okay? So the dealer could be downtown. We don't want pawn shops downtown. Is that what we're saying?
We're saying,
I thought the statement was to exclude dealers in the residential office and the downtown.
yeah, that's what I was suggesting.
With all this crime coming to Smithfield, I don't want to be mugged at 2100 block and pawned at the 500 block.
Okay. Excluding from downtown and retail office, residential office.
That would make it a special use permit item for the highway retail commercial, the planned shopping center, the PMUD, and then light and heavy industrial.
Okay.
Any further comment?
Have we dealt with the pawn shops and everything else on a separate note while we're dealing with the whole ordinance, not just the dealer?
You can. Probably don't want pawn shops and payday lenders in downtown and RO either, do you?
Not the pawn shop, for sure. But can the pawn shop be pulled in its own separate category?
I'm okay with all of them. I don't need a payday lending establishment next door to the ice cream parlor. Or a pawn shop.
Essentially pull that same item for payday lending establishment, check it, pull it out of the same zones.
Yes.
So pawn shop is not permitted in downtown and residential office. Isn't that by code already?
Allowed by special use permit right now.
They're allowed by special use permit. And we are proposing that they be removed, the special use permit in those two zones be removed. Okay. Any further statements? Summary, Director Clary.
Yes, sir, thank you. We would be incorporating Virginia code, including that highlighted section, into the town code. We would be defining pawnbroker, secondhand dealer, and dealer in our zoning ordinance under the definitions. The dealers would not be permissible as a special use permit in RO or the downtown area. They would be permissible as a special use permit item in the HRC, PSC, PMUD, and then light and heavy industrial. Then we would also be removing pawn shops, payday lending, and check cashing stores as a special use permit item from the residential office and downtown districts.
Everyone's good with this? Okay, no further comment? Okay. Item number 9 is closed. This next item, number 10, if this is going to take a while, should we have a recess at this time? Does anybody think this will take a while?
I just need 30 seconds.
Need 30 seconds? Okay. Then we will recess this meeting 5 minutes. Okay. Return here at 9 o'clock.
Well, you're right.
Sit there, wrong, buddy.
Right there, wrong.
Well, they asked for a robust discussion. I believe they got robust discussion.
So the informational item is just for information, not for a robust discussion.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's really not ours, and we really can't do anything.
You can't make
All we can do is provide comment. Leave it up to Mr. Gibbs to figure out how to handle this.
No. I wouldn't know parts of it. It was just, it's opposition, you know, we just even presented, like,
Really?
information on it, like.
I just don't like junk housing, and I think this is a Ryan Holmes project, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, and that, to me, would be like, see you later.
It's NDR, yeah.
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 And just the way it moves, the buffers, the doors,
No, it has nothing to do with that.
it's a terrible project, terrible.
No, you don't understand.
She got charged for a lot of things that
Wait a minute.
didn't happen.
All she has to send her, Ashby said she'll send the order back.
Sorry, I can't.
She'll send her a bid back.
You can't resist what?
Can't resist some of the jokes.
Things that, there was nothing.
I never noticed the,
I'm sorry.
I never noticed that, drug tours carried adult toys.
I can't, I don't know.
Now, I'm looking.
Again, she needs to go and see, go talk to
Mr.
Ashby.
Swack, where are they located?
That's what we'll do.
Because I can't.
Where are they located? The toys and the drug
Yeah, I'm not in
stores.
trouble, I just don't know anything about it. I mean, I might as well,
Yeah, me,
I might as
but
well, I don't know what she does.
I go to the Sunoco station, right across the food line. They don't meet, they're beyond 15% big
I'm
time.
on one side of the office, and she's on the other. I have no idea what she's doing over there, except she's doing stuff I don't know why. I guess it's
I'm
just.
trying to think if there's other stores that we haven't thought of yet.
Of course, we'll get charged for that too, then.
What?
Trying to run down Mercury Boulevard or Jefferson Avenue and saying which stores do they have that we don't.
To get a better explanation, because
No, she won't charge you for special questions, but they're doing no slides.
Yeah.
It's gonna take one person to figure it out.
But I couldn't begin to answer those questions, because I don't know. I mean, she don't know what I do either.
well, that's a good thing.
Well, it is, I mean, that's, you know,
Okay,
I don't,
all right, thanks.
yeah, sure.
Does it? CVS either stopped at the store or I get back their products and stuff. So
Look at Ben's grant.
I don't know about Rite Aid. I'm pretty sure Rite Aid doesn't sell it.
Your Ryan Holmes are not affordable either. They should be.
You know, I remember selling, up in, Loudon, I was selling Ryan homes for $1 million.
What, like, we had a
I kid you not,
snowstorm, like,
and, they were buying them like, it was to the point where
they were building, I worked there, I drove.
they would give you bonuses for selling homes. It was to the point where I was selling probably 3 houses a day, like with different clients. Like they would just pass my name one year, and the houses were just made. And all the people I sold houses to, you know, I was strongly opposed to Ryan Homes. I was like, they're dirt quality homes out here. And this was in 2013, 14. So all of them are having problems now, and all of them are selling, they're trying to sell a home. Ryan Homes, they're shocking.
Everybody's ready? Everybody's ready? Yes? This meeting reconvened. Item 10. Item 10 on our agenda tonight is an information item. This is Isle of Wight County Planning Commission public hearing Sweetgrass project. It's informational for us. And I think, I don't know, so much as this has been talked about around town. The Sweetgrass project. Should I get a report from you? Do we require a report?
No, sir. This is on Planning Commission's agenda just for informational purposes as it is close to the town boundaries. Any comments that Planning Commission would like me to provide the county, I would be happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, as most of you know by now, the town, there are 2 properties involved here, 2 large properties, one within the town and one within outside the town in the county next to the town. It's one owner. It appears to me to be one owner. And there's going to be some work in conjunction. There are conditions, I think, on the town portion that is probably conditional on what happens with the county. And as I understand it, the county well, you all read it. I would think. A lot is to be said when the county staff recommends denial of the request. The larger portion of these 2 applications where do we go? I don't think there's much we can do at this point until the county has resolved its portion of this application.
I don't think these are 2 contiguous properties. Mr. Henry Layden is the executor of the Yeoman Estate, and that piece of property is part of the Yeoman Estate in which he is chairman of a group of people that oversee that estate.
He's
On the town side, he is the owner of the land, and so therefore, but these are not mutually exclusive developments, similar to Mallory Point, which one's in the county and one's in the town. These are standalone developments.
And they don't have anything to do with each other. The two applicants for development are not the same.
Exactly.
They're not the same builders, they're not affiliated in any way. Mr. Layden owns the property, and he personally owns the property in the town of Smithfield. In fact, lives back there on the lake behind the shopping center. Food line, well, it's not, no, Farm Fresh, it's not Farm Fresh anymore. Kroger Shopping Center. Dr. Pope is exactly right. The Yeoman Farm is the farm where the Sweetgrass property is proposed. It's outside the town boundaries. It's on the northeast side of Route 10, and it's completely outside the town boundaries. he is just the trustee. He doesn't have anything to do with developing it at all. This NVR group has got it under contract, and they're the ones who are gonna develop it. But they're mutually exclusive, they have nothing to do with each other.
So they're asking for comment from us, and I have a handful of comments. Not a handful, I don't know if you. When we first saw this project in 2019, we had a lot more development in the front of the project that was visible from Ben's Church Boulevard. In this project, there are 2 commercial buildings and a parking lot visible from Ben's Church Boulevard. And then they have a 60-foot public right-of-way with some recreation area. And they leave all these fields, and I'm looking at it on my map at the same time as I'm looking on here. And they leave these lakes open. They put a road down each side. They do put some townhouses on one side. This is a much better plan than we saw before. Doesn't mean I'm in favor of it, but if this is going to be developed and we don't have control of that, they're asking for our comments. This is a better plan than we saw before, with a lot of green space and some lakes up front that do not get developed. It's a better plan than we saw before. Comments on density and the builder. I leave density up to Isle of Wight County. I don't know what my role on Smithfield's Planning Commission is to talk about what the county does in their density and what they build. I think I have rights to say that as a citizen, but I don't know about Planning Commission. But what I do like from a Planning Commission standpoint is how they've left this mostly open in the beginning of the property, and we have more green space open. You see here, oops. This looks to be green, and they keep these lakes in here. I'm trying to visualize as I ride back there.
Just trying to visualize
What this is here, yeah.
all these, because these are all gonna be like single-family rear entry homes.
Oh,
So
I
that's
stand
all-
corrected.
Yes.
that's-
I stand absolutely corrected.
Yes.
So what I would like to see is the recreation area. Yes, that area up there is, I would like to see that stay open. I'd love to be able to look all the way back in that farm.
Right.
Thank you for correcting me on that. I did not, when I saw the recreation area, I thought that whole area was open.
That's a recreation area between.
Between
two
homes,
double
right,
rows
yeah,
of
right,
homes
exactly. Narrow lots at that.
and very narrow lots.
So you have a total of 610 units, right? So the school board came and actually, and like I said, this is just informational only. You know, it's talking about the increase in the number of students that will be attending this area. And they were saying there's gonna be a 55 and older community. But what prevents your grandkids from staying with you and attending school? And it's just we had the assistant superintendent of schools there, Dr. Coleman, and he was just like, hey, look, we need to do a little bit more research on how this affects the school system, the fire department, the police department, because 600 homes at 2.5 per home, right? So
2.3.
2.3.
That's close, yes.
Yeah. So,
So we were saying that it would be much appreciated not to have development right up on the road.
That was our initial comments, and that, I still feel that same way.
My comment's gonna be the same as we talked about with the age of 55 and over in the Cypress Creek subdivision, when he came to us with a 5-foot sideline setback, and he increased it up to 18 feet. But setbacks are gonna put houses 10 feet apart. If you're trying to avoid other communities that are so densely populated, like up the road, sideline setbacks have gotta be greater. For me, I mean, that 10 feet is way too close for 2 houses to be next to each other. You know, I think our ordinance on a lot of this is 15 feet, which would put them 30 feet apart. But put a house 10 foot apart from another house, it's a little bit narrow. In doing so, that limits your density, because if you have more sidelines, you've got to cut the lot down, because they're only talking about 50-foot wide lots. That means you got a 40-foot wide house. If you increase your sideline densities, you can't build but such a wide house on a 50-foot lot. So to me, 5-foot sideline setbacks are way out of proportion to what they should be, in my opinion.
You mean too small?
too small, well, they're too narrow, because they would
Yes.
be too close to the property line.
Yes. But to go back to what I was trying to say earlier, the relationship between these two developments, there is some traffic changes that'll be made with the sweetgrass that is going to affect the traffic impact analysis of this development behind Tractor Supply, or next to Tractor Supply. I think there's also some question about where this development would be running its sewage and where it'll be getting its water from, how that would be addressed.
It doesn't have anything to do with the time. The county already has more water than they want to, than they can possibly sell. So the county is gonna deal with the water situation.
No, I'm thinking infrastructure-wise.
Well, that's all the county's problem. And then the sewage is gonna be, they'll have their own collection systems and they'll tie into the Hampton Road Sanitation District's force main that runs right by it. None of that affects the town at all. Doesn't affect our water, doesn't affect our sewer.
But how the developer will configure it may be impacted by what's done with Sweetgrass. And from what I understand, there's also what will be done with the traffic. There's talk of adding another light for one of these developments.
So they're currently working on a master TIA for this area. It's multiple developers that are involved.
Yes.
And so they are trying to come up with a finalized master TIA that would address multiple developments. Again, that has not been finalized at this point in time.
And that's what I'm trying to get across, that I think that is going to have an impact upon this development.
Well, Promontory's already talking about using county water, if you
Well,
remember the.
we already have, just so you know, the town is town council we entered into a water agreement a long time ago, and we were supposed to start buying water from the county, but it presupposed that we would be able to, we can't mix the water. The water that the county has is surface water that's treated, and the water that the town has is groundwater that's treated, and you can't mix the two. And so the solution that we've come up with and an agreement that we're contemplating and is likely to be entered into the town will end up selling, part of the town, potentially this development behind Tractor Supply would be served by county water.
Yes, right.
Because it's so ridiculously expensive for us to try to figure out a way to serve them, and there's just no way to do it. This is more economically sound than trying to do what was contemplated 10 years ago. Which is fine, because it gives us, we have ample water on our ground permit. We can handle potential growth for years and years to come.
The other problem I have with this is it's an application for PMUD, but we don't know what commercial elements are going to be involved in this. And to me, that there's quite a bit of information that's missing for us to really give it any serious consideration.
We have no consideration.
No,
We have
just
simply
trying to
comment.
Tell them what we want.
You just get to, you say what you want to, but they don't have to listen.
Okay.
But in that regard then, Mr. Bryan, it's almost, very rarely does any development know exactly what their commercial tenants are gonna be. They just don't. And in today's world, there's fewer and fewer brick and mortar stores anyhow, because the world has just changed. There's, do you remember at Ben's Church where not Ben's Church, yeah, Ben's Church where all the old golf course used to be? Where by the Centero, that has like 100,000 square feet of commercial zoning there, which wouldn't be built in our lifetime. Because back when it was rezoned, everybody thought that made sense. Well, the whole world has changed because of Amazon and internet purchases and all that kind of stuff. And so your point about you don't know what's gonna go there, nobody's ever gonna be able to tell you for the most part what's gonna go on a commercial site because, they just don't know.
Well, it's like the property by the DMV. I mean, he showed us the concept of the building and everything, but he doesn't know who's moving in there.
He wants a restaurant.
He wants a restaurant.
That's all he could tell you.
And then there's a couple of other places on the end that are up in the air.
Right.
But he had enough information to know what type of building he wanted there.
Yes.
Well, hopefully he's building a building that'll be attractive to somebody that will rent it.
So for me, the only thing is sideline setbacks, and they have a 3-house repeat rule, you know, and that should be spaced out. You don't want 3 houses, every third house to be the same. I mean, to me, it's not aesthetically pleasing. So I don't know what else to offer them as comments. For me personally is just looking at that and saying, space the 3-house rule out. I don't know what they currently do in their old developments and how they've handled all the previous approvals.
But then this, again, is the counties, the planning, Alaway County Planning Commission's decision to make.
It is.
Yeah.
Right. We have an agreement. The reason you're seeing this is because the town and the county have an agreement that for development within a certain distance from the joint boundary is subject to, it's a courtesy commentary. They send it to you, they send their stuff to us, and we're supposed to send our stuff to them for them to look at, and we have an opportunity to make comments.
They'll probably likely comment on the promontory.
Right?
Yes, but how do we get there when you have several things that's up in the air? Several major things that's up in the air. You have the TIA project by the county. It doesn't seem like VDOT is participating in this yet. They haven't bought in. Perhaps they will later. And then there's a question of several developers being part of this project.
So there was no VDOT study available when this was given for us information on it. So they said they were in the process of gathering information, and they was gonna come back and present.
I'm just trying to, what are we really gonna comment on here when so much of this is incomplete and hasn't been determined?
So then our request from the county that it comes back to us again after we have the VDOT studies and other supporting documentation.
And in this document here, in this item, county staff recommends denial of the request.
Yes.
Until the applicant addresses the county staff, how far is this development gonna go? We don't know that.
Well, that's not the point. You're overthinking this. Based on what you've got in front of you, tell them what you like and tell them what you don't like. That's it.
That's it.
That's the extent of what you're supposed to do. And if you don't have enough information, you don't comment. You can say, I don't have enough information to make a comment on traffic or whatever else it brings your, is of your concern. But this is a courtesy review, and you get to look at it and you get to say, I like this, or I don't like that, or anything you want to, because you're entitled to it. But you can't demand anything from them, because it's not before you, it's before the county.
Yes.
I mean, the only other thing for me is a generalized comment, which I don't know if it's legal or not, is when they start adding more police protection, more fire trucks are needed, more school buses are needed, those items need to be part of the proffer statement that says we're impacting this and we're gonna donate this to the county. To me, there needs to be more allocation to our resources than what appears to be. to
And the
me.
developer
And that's
offered
in
that.
all developments.
The developer offered that. So whether it was admin or operational, they were willing to proffer certain things.
But I think we need to see more of that across the board
Agree.
as well. I don't know how to ask for that, or how you ask for that, or how you follow through with that, but there needs to be a lot more of that.
So to be on the safe side, why don't we send it back, state we don't have enough information to comment at this time?
That's not safe at all. That's just, you're just punning. If you say, I don't have enough information to comment, that's gonna be taken as you have no comment.
I think we should add the recommendations that Dr. Pope.
That's what we're trying to say.
With the additional, that we would like to see the additional studies.
I mean, ultimately, I mean, long-term, if you look at the parcel across the road from Sweetgrass, if Sweetgrass is ultimately going to put a stoplight in at their major intersection, because they've got a right in, a right out, but you're going to have a major intersection. To me, it would make a whole lot of sense to create a road on the other side that's a back road on the property line behind Wawa and whatever other establishments are there in order to come through to that
That's on the-
intersection.
They're doing that.
Okay,
that's on
I
the
mean, I don't
table.
know what the
That's
county's
what
doing.
Tammy was talking about. They were talking about like it's not an area of transportation network, which will include potentially the roads you're talking about, one behind Wawa, and then they had discussions with the school about bringing the buses out there instead of bringing them on Turner Drive.
Gotcha, yeah, okay. But those would be
Because-
other comments for the whole
Yeah.
thing, but.
But that's been, we all attended a meeting, gosh, it's been more than a year ago, discussing that whole thing, and they said that it's critical, the county's pretty much insisted on a area-wide transportation solution plan.
The other comment I guess I would have is, if you're looking at the Ben's grant comparison and how they've got this laid out, they gotta have adequate room for parking and driveways. And I don't know that their setbacks allow for that everywhere, because it's near impossible in the evening to drive through Ben's grant because all of the cars that are parked in the street. It basically becomes a one-way road because there's not room. And if this doesn't have any more room for off-street parking than they've got in Ben's grant, then it's just too tight.
So wider roads for on-street parking and still allow for two cars to pass?
Two-directional path,
That is entirely true.
yeah.
You can't get through there.
I'm concerned about the traffic, the solution. All these things about what are they planning on doing with the lights. They're going from a 3-head to a 5-head. Seems like that's adding a lot more time to the stops at the lights on.
You're going to a 5-head because what they're doing is adding the flashing yellow. So you'll
Yes.
have your green turn arrow for that period of time, but
Yes.
then it'll go flashing yellow. So you're adding the extra lights in the tower for flashing yellow.
And that's gonna add a lot more time. I mean, I can see we have the congestion now during rush hour. In addition to all these traffic changes,
I have confidence in VDOT.
and they're going to add another light, and they're proposing adding another light.
Well,
Perhaps you
I have confidence in VDOT, but the big difference between what everybody's opinion in town is and what VDOT's acceptable level of service is are two completely different things. We're very used to a level A or grade A level of service out of all of our roads and highways. And VDOT is good when you're up to a, condition E level of service, which is, from a 5-second stop to a 60-second stop. And level E level of service is perfectly good for VDOT because that's what everybody else contends with. So we should be able to contend with that here. So a lot of these developments, they're gonna come in here with, yep, we did a traffic study, it's still, we're still at a service level D and a service level D is acceptable, so we're moving forward. Nobody in town is gonna be happy with a level D service compared to what they have today. They're gonna call that too much traffic. So,
A lot of change there, but perhaps Director Clary or Commissioner Gibbs, one of you can clear this up for me. I've been looking at this thing, and one of the things they keep mentioning is the main entrance. And I've had a hard time locating that on these drawings. I know there's proposed light to be added, but where is this main entrance to this development?
the main entrance is between your recreational area and your commercial area.
Is that where they're adding the light?
And that's where they're proposing adding a light if necessary. And then the secondary entrance is sort of upstream, if you will, from the east.
What page is that on?
Commercial, recreation, light in, light out, that's the picture.
So, so there's no through to the other side?
Not yet,
This is gonna be a three-way, this is gonna be a three-way traffic.
until the whole transportation authority rules on it.
Exactly.
Oh, I was looking for an intersection, that's why I didn't find it. Oh, so we're gonna add a light just for one development, that's what's happening?
Well,
No,
that-
that's-
no,
It's not even a light going in initially.
Not
that- that's the whole point was, they're talking about, in discussions with the county, that there would be potentially a light there, but there would be a road across the street that goes back to the school, and then there would be a road behind the property across, the rest of the Yeoman property across the street that would tie into that roundabout on Turner Drive. It's not shown on any of this stuff, but that's what they're talking about.
Mr. Gibbs, can I make a comment? If y'all discuss that at the county level, that back road behind Wawa would be nice to extend that to the Oaks for ease of use for the people using an existing business, if that's a possibility, to include that little bit of, it's been expressed that a road back there would be beneficial for that business.
That was mentioned.
Mr. Gibbs, what was the consideration of the planning commission with the 50-foot wide lots? Was there discussion on that?
Wasn't any discussion on the size of the lot. So the developers came out and they couldn't get past the aesthetics of the building. They couldn't get past the setbacks. And then when they were talking to, I don't have my notes in front of me. But the setbacks were one of the issues, the traffic congestion that was caused. And it was just the amount of reports that we didn't have. We didn't have a VDOT report. And so at that point, it was just like, hey, look, this is where we're at. And after we get these reports, we'll bring this back.
I would like to make the recommendation that you make the lots wider. 50-foot wide lots creates a tremendous amount of density. Narrow lots, it goes to the discussion of off-street parking. Nobody wants a 3-acre lot in their house anymore, but I don't know how many acres these lots are, but it's tiny. Larger lots.
So you're saying 0.5 of an acre, 0.33.
I would say, I don't know what I'm dealing with now. It's just hard for me to say. Do you know, Tim?
So just to kind of give you some context, in our cluster lot for our suburban residential, the interior width would be 60 feet and the corner would be 90 feet.
And that's in our cluster, which is
That
our
would be the
most
cluster.
close.
Suburban
area.
residential.
Yeah, right. So this is much tighter than, I mean, it's 10 feet tighter, but
Would you like to comment on the multifamily residential townhouses?
not outside of town. There's a place for them. There's a need for them. I don't deny that.
They're in a good location on the lot, and
Yeah.
based on the RPA and what they're probably dealing with on that side of the development, it's probably not a bad place for where they are located.
Yeah. Had this been a little bit closer to town, on the other side of Sherwin-Williams, yeah, I'd have a lot to say about it. Well, I wouldn't have a lot to say, I just have a no vote. Right here, I don't have a vote.
It still just comes down to density. It's all about density.
50-foot lots make it entirely too dense. 60-foot lots makes this entire, this whole thing would be a cluster development in the town of Smithfield.
What is, maybe I'm just dense, but what is this backloaded, rear-loaded home product? What is?
Up front,
So the driveway is going to be, they're looking for the driveways to be back in their property, kind of like over off of Shoulder Hill, Eric Sasser, that development there, where you enter the property through the back.
Think the Grange, except with the driveway coming from the front and going to the back, the road's in the back, and you just enter from the back from the driveway.
Yes.
Front of the
Are these
house,
single-family detached, or,
single-family
No,
detached,
no.
yeah.
God, those lots
And
look like
those lots are awfully
the
big,
lots
too.
look like they're 5 feet wide.
So, yeah, we have made a comment that we did like any type of development up front in that recreational area. We'd like to keep the line of sight back for the farm.
That's what you said last time.
This is one of the prettiest farms in town. The lakes that go through it, and it rolls a little bit. It's really, really pretty piece of property.
It would really be nice if it was an 1800s working farm. It's something that I think would be cool.
Maybe some agritourism.
Do we need agricultural program as a part of the school programs?
You have the programs, but you wouldn't get the students.
I think they're looking for comments. My 2 comments would be the recreation area up front stays as open and we get rid of that house in the front. And then we increase the lot size, which is going to reduce the number of houses in there. I have no problem with that. Tammy, can you tell me what a standard residential lot is in the town of Smithfield in our zoning ordinance? Because that's the number I'm going to base what I think their width should be.
So in our neighborhood residential, I believe it's 100 Yes, for an interior is 100 feet in width. A corner would be 125 feet in width.
I would, that is one of the comments I would like to see. I would like to see their residential lots in here to match a minimum of 100 foot in width, unless it's on a corner, it's 125.
What's the depth on that? What's your depth on a 100-foot lot, Tammy? No.
125 feet.
That would,
So that's 4 lots per acre. That's,
quarter acre.
that's, I mean, you can say what you want to. That's not, nobody can build a development with that density anymore. I mean, they just can't. Can't, won't.
Rats.
I'm just telling you,
I understand your point, no.
Everybody used to be, 25 years ago, the standard was 1 acre lots. We want 1 acre lots. Well, you can't,
I understand that.
you can't pay, nobody can build the road and the sewer. That lots would end up being so, they'd be so expensive that nobody can afford to live there.
Our cluster development is 65 feet, and I don't see this being a cluster development. Is this age restricted? Yes?
Yes.
Proposed is age restricted?
Which is one of the other reasons for keeping your lot size down, because they're not.
Right,
gonna
and
be-
yeah.
It's all gonna be done by.
Okay, so
homeowners
if-
association.
I can bring it from 100 down. It's age restricted. I mean,
Still goes back to sideline setbacks, 10 feet for a house to be too close together.
right.
Well, actually, I was gonna say, I think it is 10-foot setback. It's 5 foot to the front.
No, it's 20 foot front, 15 rear, 5 side.
Well, there's another set of something in here that has 5 front. Or maybe that's those
Those are
ones that are up
townhomes.
front.
Yeah.
Maybe the 5 to the front.
A person who drives a tractor for a living was in the office today, and they said they could not get a piece of equipment around the house to work on anything in the backyard at that type of setback.
With the 5 foot, you mean?
Yes. They could not navigate equipment to the back to have to work on something if they need be.
Okay. David, how about we say 75 feet? It's a little bit bigger than our cluster, but not so.
The compromise that Cypress Creek came up with at their age restriction was a 6-foot setback on one side, 12 foot on the other, meaning you had to have at least 18 feet between homes. So there was a compromise in how you pulled that together. So you might be 12 feet on one side of the house or so. I think it was 12 foot minimum, so you might be 12 foot on one side, but that was because you needed a side loading driveway on one side. So theirs was a 6-foot setback, but it had to be 18, or there was something crazy with that, but that was allowing for the way the garage had to be positioned, side loading, and they could live with that. But basically what that meant is the houses could be no closer together than 12 on one side, but had to be more than 18 on the other. That's the way it worked out. 18 foot is what sticks in my mind. So there may be some sticking points or compromises in there on that distance, but they're still close together.
So we have an issue with the density, the lot size, and the traffic, and the proposed changes to the signal lights.
These are just comments.
So it's the rear loading townhomes that have the 5 foot front setback. Yeah.
And you wanted recreation area in the front, with no homes?
Correct.
in every home with solar panels and windmills?
So just to clarify,
Summarize.
well, to clarify one item first, I just went to Isle of Wight County's Planned Development Mixed Use Ordinance. They do not specify minimum lot areas, widths, or frontages in their ordinance. So I just wanted Planning Commission to be aware of that aspect of this application.
They probably should. Mr. Chairman, I have no more comments after 3-some hours.
Yes. So we're asking them to do something that they don't have in their.
Correct. They don't specify a minimum lot width. But to summarize the Planning Commission's comments, that the Planning Commission does view the plan as better than previously and applauds the green space up front with the condition that there's no development in that recreational area too.
To be specific on that includes those rear-loading townhomes. I would like them not to be there.
Yes.
Okay, just make sure that's.
The Planning Commission would like to see greater sideline setbacks, understanding that this would also limit density, wider lots, honing in on that 75-foot width. They are not in favor of the three-house repeat rule. They want to also ensure that there's adequate potential on-street parking as to avoid the situation that's currently located in Ben's Grant, which creates a one-way essential road, and would like the opportunity to provide additional comments as the application progresses.
Sounds good. Any additional comments? Sounds good. Okay. Hearing none. Item 10 on our agenda.
You just did that.
That was it.
That was it.
That's it. That's
You're on
the-
item 11, adjournment.
Adjournment.
Chairman.
There are no minutes to sign tonight, I see.
No, sir, I'm sure they're not ready.
Okay. Then, this meeting is adjourned.